Okay. Evening, it is Thursday, April 25th, 7:00 PM. My name is Carl Hummel. This is Mendon Conservation Commission. The commissioners will now introduce themselves.
Sweet.
Susan Cahalan, co-chair. Leah Whiting.
Mike Amanda.
The first order of business is continuation of the public hearing of notice of intent for 3537 Hastings Street, 1820 Washington Street. We have a DEP number yet?
No.
Okay. So
We don't have comments either.
we're waiting to
Review.
their comments.
Well, thank you. Review report. Thank you. In case you hadn't seen it.
So
Just take them down and pass it.
here,
Yep.
at our meeting.
I feel like we might want to leave this here. I'm gonna leave.
Yep, you got the couple here. That one's for you.
Well, okay.
And then plant that too.
You don't know. I feel like Peter's coming up the stairs probably.
Plant sets.
Yep, sorry. Or not. Oh, is this one?
It's one, yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is the detail things. This one that I have.
Oh, this is Is everything handed out? Okay. When we last met, we had comments and questions. In the time since then, you have revised the plans and now you're prepared to show us the changes that were made in responses to any changes that you ended up not making. So take it away.
Yeah, exactly. So for the record, Matt Moyen with Tetra Tech here on behalf of the applicant, Eastern Street Plaza. As you mentioned last time we spoke, we had some comments during the meeting. We had Isabella's comments in writing. We've since updated the plans and all the supporting documents to incorporate those changes. Some minor, like adding a label here or there on a plan sheet. Others a little more involved. I'm going to focus on the key changes we made and then happy to get into more of the details as we go. Working kind of from the resource areas out. We pushed the gravel access drive outside the 25-foot no disturb. So the only work that exists in that 25-foot no disturb are the two wellheads that would be installed, as well as the water line that would run up to the pump house. We've also taken the gravel access drive area that was in the 50-foot buffer and minimized that. And then further pushed out all the infrastructure that will have recurring activities for the management of the public water supply. So this gravel maintenance drive, as you may remember, kind of came in to the 100-foot buffer area. The water storage tank, well pump house, and the fencing around it was also within the 100-foot buffer. We've since pushed that all out entirely outside of the 100-foot buffer. So any recurring activities, ongoing activities for the public water supply will be outside of jurisdiction. In the event a pump needs to be replaced in a wellhead down the road, we've committed to notifying the Conservation Commission prior to make you aware that there would be work on 25-foot buffers. We've made some other changes to the plans outside jurisdiction in response to planning board comments and comments from the civil engineer and peer reviewer. Made some minor updates to the stormwater infrastructure, primarily the infiltration basin, based on feedback there, and incorporated some of the additional plantings around the firm. So those are the high level changes we've made since the last time we spoke. Really wanted to come in tonight to gather any additional comments you may have, provide any additional information. I know we're still waiting for DEP file number, so kind of a holding pattern for now.
One administrative thing, Peter Coffin, who is also a commissioner, has arrived. However, he is recusing himself from this project, so he's in the audience at this time. So I myself don't have any. Isabella, the planning board meeting, you raised a question. Have they been addressed since Monday?
Well, I have a couple of questions, I guess. So first one, Board of Health also brought this up, the reviewer, but the Zone 1 area, you don't own outside of that. Are you planning to get an easement
We're
through DEP?
required.
Okay. And are you planning to purchase or easement?
To be determined.
is the area not currently owned within the 100-foot buffer zone? The other side?
The area not currently owned is all wetland.
Okay,
So this light green area you see here, that wetland continues offsite in this.
okay, so it would be, that would be our jurisdiction as well, but if it's under an easement, we'd be able to make sure that it stayed that way.
Yeah, and there's no work proposed
Yep.
in the zone. That's just a definition, the boundary around the wetland. And DEP really doesn't want any that to occur within that, with the exception of elements that are in support of the public water.
I'll continue then. The Board of Health also commented that they're down gradient of the soil absorption field. So, if there's been any consideration to potential contamination in the wells from either the flood water from the infiltration basin and from the soil absorption field.
Yeah.
If there's any impacts, or if you have plans to expand the well pumping station to hold water in case you need water treatment.
So first part, no impacts related to the soil absorption system location relative to the wells or the infiltration basin. DEP has reviewed a plan that shows soil absorption system here, infiltration basin here. They've approved that plan, the well locations. There are very specific requirements we need to follow for the public water supply. So we'll be working through that with DEP as we move forward. And then the second part of your question was, sorry.
If you do have to do water quality treatment, or if there's any contaminants found in the wells.
Yeah.
If you have to get additional, or if you do have to get wastewater treatment on site, do you have plans to expand that pumping station?
So in terms of treatment of the water that we're drawing from the ground, public water supply, we have the water storage tank to provide the required storage capacity that DEP dictates.
Mhm.
We also have a well pump house that's representative as we would expect,
Yeah.
given surrounding wells in the area.
But if you were to have to test
We
water,
would expand them if needed, and it would all be outside of jurisdiction.
Any other comments from the agent?
I would still recommend the commission require the infiltration basin moved outside of the buffer zone, the 50-foot no build. So I think you're measuring from the inside of the basin, but I would recommend you measure from the outside toe slope of the berm, because you are bringing in fill to raise that. And so that's associated with the infiltration basin, and therefore should be outside the no build.
So it's a 25-foot no build or no disturb. The 50-foot no build is for impervious cover and structures. The slope of the basin is pervious slope at 2-to-1. The infiltration area, the fence, the access drive, the discharge point, and the riprap channel carrying down to the toe slope are all outside of the 50-foot buffer, with the exception of a small corner of the gravel area. We intentionally put the other control structure and discharge point here because it's the furthest point away from the wetland for the discharge. And we are compliant with the handbook. The handbook recommends the 50-foot setback for the infiltration area, which is, we are well beyond the 50-foot setback for the infiltration area.
Mike,
The-
have any input?
No, everything sounds good so far.
Well, do you agree with the agent that it's an issue, or do you?
I don't think it's an issue, but
Okay, so
Yeah.
you believe that the plan as presented is okay. All right. Any other questions on the commissioners on the infiltration issue? Okay,
If you don't mind, can I add one extra item there? This was peer reviewed by Graves Engineering as part of the planning board review process, and she had no comments relative to the setback requirements for infiltration areas.
okay.
Yeah, I spoke with Jeff about this as well. He said he had never reviewed versus the inside or the outside of the toe slope, but he said he understood my complaint and he recommended confirming with DEP, which I'm waiting for Judy to respond. So it should be in her comment.
When you said handbook, did you mean the MACC handbook?
The stormwater handbook that we're required to design.
Okay,
So the stormwater handbook says 50 feet from outside of surface waters of the United States or the Commonwealth.
okay, so we will, I think we can table that particular issue until we see whether DEP mentions that in their comments.
Yeah.
And that will be another factor in our discussion. Any other agent comments?
The last one, which we did talk about a little bit, but the snow dump for the residential area, the Board of Health review also did speak on just where the snow is gonna go. And I know you said the driveways would have independent and that it wouldn't end up in the infiltration basin over the guardrail. But I just wonder if it should be put on the plan. Where
Yeah,
you-
I can speak a little more to that. So it's not unlike any other subdivision. The plows are in the winter are gonna come through and they're gonna push the snow to the edge of the road.
What's that?
Driveways will be either shoveled or snow blown or plowed potentially as part of homeowner association. The plans show 5 foot wide sidewalk with a vertical guardrail barrier, a 10 foot grass area, a retaining wall with a 4 foot fence on the top.
Mhm.
So there's more than a few measures in place to stop snow from being unintentionally pushed into the basin or intentionally dumped into the basin.
Is there going to be no salt or restricted use of sand in the subdivision area because it's close to the water supply?
It's outside the zone one, so there's no
Okay.
restrictions relative to that. It's a relatively flat subdivision road. The grading is very,
Okay,
very level through here, so there's no hills where I would expect there to be, consistent salt being dumped to stop it. Be typical.
You have the height on that retaining wall that in front of the detention basin? 30-inch high
On
wall,
this side,
where the retention basin is.
yeah,
You said there's gonna be a.
the height relative to the grade over here. Or relative to the basin.
To the basin itself.
So
So
basin bottom.
I assume that the grass is gonna be fairly horizontal. It's gonna come to the edge of the detention basin. And then, would you say, we're putting a retaining wall with a fence on it?
There's a retaining wall here,
And what's the height of it
the height from the bottom of the basin,
from the grass?
from the grass and the sidewalk.
From the grass and the sidewalk,
It's
yes.
6 to 12 inches,
So it's small.
relatively small. Yeah, it's higher on the basin side.
since this is an area of concern, is there a detail on one of these plans saying what you just said about 10 feet, 6 feet high guardrail?
Yeah, they're all scaled plans. There's references to the height of the fence.
Okay.
References to the grades on the grading plan. There's a detail of the guardrail, detail of the sidewalk.
Okay,
So everything's dimensioned and detailed.
Mike, is that something you could find in the plans? Make sure they're matching up.
I
with
saw
what
them
we're hearing?
before.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay, great.
But one thing I would maybe request to be added on the plan, because you are bringing in fill just to make sure that it's easy for the contractor to know what is going in there, since it has to be like coarse sand for drainage. Do you have any?
Second.
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
basin.
these are plans. Entering of it, getting a permit, no other conditions from the commission. We're gonna have to further develop them once we have our permits from the plan. Take permit as well.
Excellent.
I think that's all.
Okay, I remembered one. There was some discussion about whether the appropriate fees had been paid to us. Has that been resolved?
I still have one disagreement, which I'm waiting for DEP to resolve, and you said you sent the second check.
Yes, everything was sent. We revised and discussed in our peer review letter the fee structure, and we also quoted the Wetlands Protection Act in there as well. And I think it's pretty clear that our fees are now correct and additional money has been sent to DEP and the town.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't gotten the check yet.
Okay, I'll check in the mail.
Okay. Since we have not yet received comments from DEP or a number, and we're still waiting for you to work with the planning board, when would you expect to come back before us to have another review of this?
Yeah, I mean, we're ready to come back next meeting as long as DEP issues the file number.
Okay,
There's the planning board process. We responded to all the peer review comment. There's a comment letter that came in from the Board of Health on Monday afternoon, as well as the traffic engineer that peer reviewed the project, but any of those traffic comments are going to be well outside of jurisdiction if they even have an impact.
all right, when we get the DEP comments, if they're substantive and they relate to some of the issues we were talking about before, then we'd want to have them discussed at the next meeting.
Agreed.
Otherwise, we usually don't want to give a order of conditions until after the final planning board approval has been given. In which case, we would have a meeting to review the DEP comments and then wait for the planning board, or if you wanted to, we could hold off and then do them both at the same time. So we can schedule that with you once we get the DEP comments.
Yeah, I think for now, if we can continue to the next available hearing, that would be great. And if we don't have DEP comments or
Yes.
they're more involved and require more time, we can always continue.
So the way we would structure that is we continue to the next meeting in 2 weeks. What day is that? Someone look up on their calendar.
Like
May 9th.
May 9th, okay. And then if it turns out we don't have the DEP comments by then, we would just arrange by mail to, at the applicant's request, wait until the second meeting in May. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
To answer your question about the construction details, they were on sheet 501, 508, which are not included in this particular handout. But I know I saw them on the large print.
okay, great. Any other questions or comments or things that we want to think about in the next two
Just a
weeks?
quick question. It's probably more of a planning board thing, but I was just curious, the houses or whatnot, or whatever they are. You said they were on slab on grade and whatnot, and like how many stories and how many bedrooms?
Single story, age restricted, 2 bedrooms, right? Yeah, 2 bedrooms.
Oh, so they're small guys? Okay.
Yep.
I would want to see the site maybe in the next 2 weeks, but I know the driving range is open. So you could
Good luck.
get rid of me. But
I like to go over there, you know.
yeah, I don't know.
So
if
we've
that-
already, what are you gonna be looking at? The ANRAD line has already been locked in place, the board walked it, and then it got appealed to, DEP, and the line has been set.
Yeah,
So if you just wanna walk the site,
yeah, I just want to see it and then confirm the flagging is numbered the way it is on the plan.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
if you have to let me know a couple weeks in advance for that, I'd have to have the survey crew go out and rehang all the flags.
and we're not requesting the commission review the delineation. Delineation's been.
I don't want to review the delineation. I just want to see that it's
So
there.
that's done prior to construction,
Right.
it's not construction, the agent will walk the site and see that the flags are all on the site. Not as a preliminary portion of the approval.
Okay. So what was the next meeting, May 7th, May 8th?
Nice.
So we'll entertain a motion to continue until that date.
So moved.
A second.
Any discussion? Do we have anyone on the call there? Yep, yes. Oh, all right, yep. Members of the audience.
Whoops.
Peter Coffin, Real Sawmill Road, and also 31. I'm sorry, I missed the very beginning, the changes, but
Good.
I see you added a little buffer to the back 31 acres. Looks like planting there. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. A series of questions, but I've always been concerned with high groundwater. And I reviewed, I guess you did perk tests for Board of Health,
Correct,
and most of the groundwater was like 24 inches. You told me what.
correct, yeah, roughly 24
Okay.
inches,
So what do you think the groundwater is at the detention pond?
roughly 24 inches. We've done test pits with them.
Okay, so how deep are you digging the detention
We're
pond?
not digging it all,
You're not just building it up?
building it up.
And how far are you supposed to have from the bottom of the detention pond to the groundwater?
Minimum of 2 feet, which we have, and it goes up to 6 feet of separation.
2 feet. So how are you going to get 2 feet of separation if the groundwater is at 2 feet? And I'm assuming you're going to take off well, sounds like you're going to be taking off more than top and sub. You're going to be taking out the top and sub and getting into the clay and putting in good stuff, or how many
We're not doing,
inches of good stuff are you putting in the bottom of the detention pond?
we're not doing any excavation in the footprint.
So you're just taking off the top 2 feet.
We're not taking anything.
You're gonna put it right in the loom and grass.
We are gonna have a base and bottom that's either at existing grade or filled above existing grade. To the extent we need to remove unsuitable material, it will be removed, replaced with more suitable materials, but there's no excavation
Well, how deep is the unsuitable material?
We don't anticipate there being based on the test bits.
Isn't loam unsuitable material?
I'm going to interrupt and ask how this is relevant to,
Oh.
to what we're reviewing.
Well, I think you,
How is depth to groundwater a function of concern of the Concom? I should think it would be.
Well, no, in terms of removing material or getting it to a specific grade.
the infiltration basin wouldn't drain appropriately.
Okay,
Um,
so is it a
Okay,
question?
it's a serious question, but that's established that. My concern is, if I could, during construction, so I haven't seen a during construction plan, but can you use this as your settling basin while you're building everything else? No. So then my question might be, where's your settling basin? But let me continue. You're going to be removing all the loam and topsoil out of here, under all these buildings. You're gonna be removing the loam and topsoil out of all this. So one question I have is, we have a Mendon's loam bylaw, which allows for an existing project, you can get rid of excess material. But I think you got to replace with 6 inches. We have an old law, but it's a very good one, and it's a slugmas. So my concern is, during construction, where is the loam going to be stockpiled? I would assume maybe it's kind of hard, and that it might just be put right into a screen it, truck it, put it off, and then bring back the loam you need. I don't know, but they can, well,
You can't bring it off site without sampling it first.
you can't sell loam off-site
I mean,
without sampling.
There's gotta be similar soils, similar soils.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
This is the fill job, so we don't intend to bring materials off-site. We have a plan in our set, an erosion sedimentation control plan that identifies where we plan to have a temporary sedimentation basin and conveyance channels to that sedimentation basin. There will be a SWIP that is in compliance with the EPA construction general permit that the contractor will be required to apply with during construction. Copy of that will be submitted prior to construction to the commission. So I'm a little confused as to what the concerns are here.
Okay, so Peter, what I would,
Well, I just, well,
what I would ask you to do is work with Isabella, the conservation agent, offline between now and the next meeting. And if she agrees with your concerns, the Concom would see about having them addressed at the next meeting.
okay, because I guess this was a month ago, I looked through and I couldn't see where this settling, but is there a plan where on this is?
I think there's 3 of them, yeah.
Settling basins?
Yeah, there's 2. They're gonna be up along 16, but it's a small portion of the site, and these tries to approach 16. Some measures in place, they will not discharge the sediment, so city drainage infrastructure, and then a larger one, sort of the very defensive cap, heading back, but kind of being disturbed.
My last question is, I haven't had a chance to talk with Mr. Butts, my immediate neighbor along here, but I was looking at some plan, and from this area here that doesn't drain to Route 16, seems to me, you show on the plan, it goes off your property and swings around here. No, well, I don't, what plan I would have seen that on? I don't think I have.
Stormwater.
You would have seen the proposed watershed map that shows that portions of 33 and 31 Hastings Street drain onto the subject parcel, through the parcel down to the wetland. All the stormwater on this subject parcel designed with the grading film, drain to these catch basins in the parking lot area or to catch basins at the rear of the market and be routed over the infiltration.
So that was existing drainage pattern, exactly.
Correct. And it will stay there because we're not doing any work on 31 or 33.
Yeah, I know this all goes this way, and here water kind of sits there. He's got a raised system here. Yep, those were my concerns, and I'll find out.
All right, thank you for calling my attention that I hadn't asked for questions from the audience. Anyone
This would be a
online
good spot for
interested in speaking on this?
guy.
Okay, so back to the motion on the table. Any further discussion?
Not till we get the DEP number in the comments.
Right,
First,
that's
yeah.
we're going to continue until such time as, we're going to continue for 2 weeks. And if we don't have the DEP number and comments by then, work with the applicant to, in writing, to continue that further. So all in favor?
Means forward. Aye.
Aye. Bye-bye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
I'm trying to review this. And I need time to review things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our second public hearing is scheduled for 49 Milford Street. I talked with Isabella about how this is the first time we've had two public hearings in the same meeting. I explained to her that usually we would schedule them at the same time, so we could have them one after the other. Because the public hearing notice was for 8 o'clock, we will go on with other business for the next 35 minutes. Since the same people are on the call, we can jump ahead to agenda item number 6, 4549 Uxbridge Road, DEP number 218-0824. Review by Jeff Walsh of Graves Engineering. Discuss the enforcement order, stormwater pollution prevention plans, proposals for peer review, and take action required. Attorney Brodsky is on the call.
Got you.
I have
This one? No, that's
a
49 Milford? No.
45,
Number
49 Uxbridge Road. I have a ruling from the chair that I will read. This has been sent to Attorney Brodsky a couple of days ago, so that you review it. The Mendon Conservation Commission is considering whether to require a peer review for the site at 4549 Uxbridge Road, DEP 218-0824. The site manager and attorney for the owner have taken the position that the review be restricted to remediation proposals and not include a review of stormwater or erosion control. At the March 14th meeting, the Concom voted to restrict the review accordingly. However, upon advice from DEP, conservation agent investigated further as to applicable Commonwealth law DEP regulations in the Mendon Wetlands Protection Bylaw. I have reviewed this information with Town Council Karis North, and her advice informs my decision. At the April 25th meeting, today, we will discuss superseding that 314 vote and instead accept one of the existing 2 peer review proposals. Both include a review of and make recommendations about the stormwater plans for the site and whether they need updating so as to prevent adverse impact to the jurisdictional bordering of vegetated wetland, intermittent stream, and their associated buffer zones. Specifically, the Concom is not taking jurisdiction to regulate the uplands area of the site, but only to regulate the impacts of past, present, and future activity in the uplands to the wetland resources. And then there are 2 sections, regulations, one from the DEP regulations and the second from the Mendon bylaw, section 10. They will be, they're on our SharePoint site, and I will not read them specifically. Any questions from the commission? I would say what we would be proposing is at some point after discussion to entertain a motion to supersede the 314 vote and then instead have a new vote to accept one of the 2 peer reviews that we already have. So that's what the end state will be after we end up discussing it amongst ourselves and with the applicant and their representatives. So any questions about what's going on in terms of procedure?
Nope, but we're gonna hear both options, right?
They're the 2 we have.
Yes.
I mean, I read through them, but just.
Yeah, one of them is more money than the other, and we reviewed them a couple months ago. All right, so I'll open it up to which of you wish to speak on?
I'll start, I guess, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Chair and members of the Conservation Commission, once again, I will stress clearly, any work we did outside of the buffer did not impact the lower wetland as shown by the simple fact that water from the upper portion of the site goes into the upper wetland and the intermittent stream. There is not and has not been any silt in any of the upper resource areas or intermittent stream associated with the area outside of the buffer. Any silt that did get in the lower wetland came from the lower permitted portion of the site while we were hammering out the lower basin for it to be filled with trap rock and the stream temporarily redirected within a liner and piped. If the board has some type of evidence that the silt from the upper area outside of the buffer
was the silt that entered the lower wetland, then please tell me how it could get there without entering the intermittent stream or the upper wetland area. We have had almost a perfect track record on the site, as shown by the Stella SWIP reports submitted every 2 weeks and every half inch of rain after every half inch of rainstorm. The only release of silt that did occur during this on the site was during the one large storm event in December that I was told by the DEP circuit rider that every site in the state had problems. We were inspected twice by a DEP circuit rider after that storm event. They found everything in order. We had multiple additional erosion control measures in place prior to that storm, way more than was required by approved plan and the recorded order of condition. The board should have dropped this enforcement order months ago and not prolonged this witch hunt looking for nothing. We had one small release of silt during a major storm event and have had no releases through many, many, many heavy rain events since that time. This is now bordering on total harassment by the commission, who we know and has shown animosity, members of it have shown animosity to the owner of the company where I'm currently employed. We have been nothing but upfront and cooperative with the board with everything to do with the site. I personally have been attentive to the abutters and do my best to address their concerns. We were the first one to submit as-built plans and restoration plans for the lower wetland after the major storm event in December. Multiple site walks have taken place since that rain event, and the site has always been in order. What exactly is the board looking for? Is it protecting the resource areas? Because it is blatantly apparent that we have done that. Is it a restoration plan for cleaning the small amount of silt in the lower wetland? Because we have also submitted that. The general function of the Conservation Commission is to make sure that the resource areas are protected. We have protected them, going way beyond what most site contractors would do. Yes, we use an area of land that we own on an upland portion of our property to handle material and fill. We surrounded that area with silt fence. We installed erosion control measures, including silt fence, stone check, wood chip berms, and temporary settle basins to control the flow of water from that area to protect all of the upper wetland areas and intermittent stream. And no silt to this date has entered any of those areas. Once again, we have never had a single release of silt into any of the resource areas associated with the upper portion of the site. The intermittent stream is now totally controlled all the way to the lower wetland by the use of basin liner and piping and has zero silt in it. I want to know what the board is trying to accomplish here. The board also requested that the planning board have the town's engineering consultant review and walk the site. He did that. He found nothing wrong with the site erosion controls or sediment controls, but did ask for an updated hydrology report based on the proposed new ground cover of the restored area outside of the buffer areas. We sent a letter to planning board over a week and 2 days ago after receiving his comment letter that we will be submitting minor plan changes requested by Mass DOT that will include a new drainage and hydrology report. The upland area of the site was classified at the beginning of the project as good woods with de-soil. The restored area at the end of construction will have an A soil with an upland conservation seed mix that include grasses, woody plants, milkweed, and other native species that has improved water infiltration and less runoff than the portion of the site originally had. This will all be reviewed by the town's engineering consultant at planning board in the upcoming months, and I'm sure the commission will receive a copy. Once again, nowhere in their review did Graves Engineering state that anything we did outside of the buffer impact the lower wetland. So once again, what is the board trying to accomplish? The resource areas are extremely well protected. We have been upfront and on time with all of the board's requests for SWIP reports and as-built plans. We have submitted a very simple restoration plan for removing silt from the lower wetland by hand that will be overseen by a professional wetland scientist and a licensed SWIP inspector. Not rocket science by any means. So what is the board doing other than causing continued conflict for no reason? With that said, I have been removed from the project as project manager of this job because my bosses feel that I have lost credibility with the boards. I would like to introduce Sean Reardon, Matt Moyen from Tetra Tech. And you all know our legal counsel, Adam Brodsky. They will be handling this from now on. Thank you.
One of the other people wish to speak further on this before we, okay. I believe that.
Right there.
Attorney Bryce.
Oh, okay, yep, sorry,
Thank you, Chair Hummel. Good evening. Can you hear me, sir?
yes.
Thank you very much. John has more articulately than I can speak to the technical issues of the site, but I just want to reinforce the fact that there will be minor changes to this project that is going to require updated stormwater report, which will be reviewed in the ordinary course of business by the planning board. It makes no sense to have a consultant working for the Conservation Commission review the current stormwater report because the conditions are going to change. And candidly, it's unfair to require Route 85 Realty Corp to pay for that activity, which is simply going to be useless since the site conditions are going to be changed in short order. We've tried our very best to work with the commission to address its concerns, which is why we've never objected to you hiring a peer review consultant to review the restoration plan, which as Mr. Naynard has indicated, it's fairly simple and straightforward, but that's a cost that the client is willing to pay. But the client is not willing to pay for an unnecessary review of the stormwater report and the stormwater conditions. With respect to the extent of your jurisdiction, I've said my piece on that, and Mr. Naynard is absolutely correct. There's been no evidence presented that allows you in this instance to extend your jurisdiction to that upland area. And lastly, you have a procedural problem, which is your ability to require us to pay for a peer review is based upon General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53G, which is in fact referenced in your wetland bylaw under Section 10, which you were kind enough to forward to me, or at least you forward to me an excerpt of, but it needs to be read in full context. So under Section 10 fees, subparagraph A, it says, at the time of a permit application, request for determination of applicability, notice of resource area delineation, or other request, the applicant shall pay the filing fee as specified in the regulations of the commission to the town of Mendon to be put into an account established pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53, upon which account may be drawn upon. As you know, that's the statutory authority that allows the Conservation Commission to, among other boards, to hire outside consultants. Then you need to carry on and read subsection B. The commission, in its discretion, is authorized to require an applicant to pay a consultant fee for the reasonable cost and expenses borne by the commission in its consideration of the application. Both the statute and the bylaw restrict you from requiring that the applicant pay consultant fees if there is a pending application before you, as defined in Section 10, a request for determination of applicability, notice of resource area delineation, or other request. There is presently no application before this commission. Route 85 Realty Corp is not an applicant before this board. And so I respectfully suggest that Section 10 of your own bylaw, which parrots the language of the statute, does not allow you to compel a party to pay for the peer review in connection with an enforcement matter. If the commission wishes to hire its own consultant at its own cost to represent its interest and review a project, it may do so. I do not believe that you have the legal right to compel the applicant to do so in this instance. So again, we're looking for a solution here. Our proposed solution is that the applicant is willing to pay for the peer review of the restoration plan. But if the commission votes to hire a peer review consultant to revisit the stormwater report or evaluate the stormwater compliance of the site with the stormwater standards, Route 85 Realty Corp is not going to pay that bill. And we will have a dispute that will have to be resolved elsewhere. So again, I'm looking for a solution to this problem without further conflict, but I want to state clearly Route 85 Realty's legal position on the commission's authority to compel it to pay for a stormwater review on the circumstances. Again, just to close out, and I am repeating myself, conditions on the site are going to change and they will be reviewed in connection with the planning board's review of those changes, which will require a new stormwater report. So thank you. We're happy to answer any questions. I just want you and the commission to understand our position.
Okay, so I can summarize your point about timeliness is in section 10B, the phrase in consideration of the application, and your point being that the application has already been accepted when we issued the OOC, and that it is not timely for us to go back and require another review at this time. Is that correct?
A slightly different, Chair Hummel. There must be a pending application in front of you. So
Okay.
we must have an application in front of you requesting review of some aspect of our project. We have a valid order of conditions upon which we're acting, so there's no application before the commission. This is, again, an enforcement matter. If the commission wishes to hire its own consultant at its own cost to do work that it thinks is appropriate, that's a cost to be borne by the commission. But under your own bylaw, I don't think that you can ask the Route 85 Realty Corp to pay for that in this instance.
Okay, that's definitely something we can review internally. During John's statement, he referred to the peer review by the applicant. Is that the one from Graves Engineering?
Yes,
Okay.
by planning board.
Yes, so
Planning
this was
board.
the applicant, this is the review that was done by Graves Engineering for the planning board. There is discussion in his comments about how the area, quote, the area on the hill was shown as not being disturbed on both versions of the plans. GEI checked the hydrology computations in the project's drainage analysis dated June 7, 2019, and found the area on the hill had been modeled as, quote, woods good, unquote, which was reasonable if the area was not going to be converted to a ground surface other than woods, whereas stumps had been removed and the area was regraded. The ground surface wouldn't be reverted to woods. I understand from the statement it would be reverted to something called Class A.
I think what he was referring to is the soil type was not going to end up generating more runoff.
Okay,
But again, I'm only recently becoming involved here. I'm getting up to speed on several things, so.
so going back to the final sentence in the review. Therefore, the hydrology computations should be revised to account for the regrading and permanent ground cover to be established once construction and earth material processing is completed. Is that part of the minor adjustments that are going to be in front of the planning board?
Chair Hummel, I don't have a copy of what you're reading. Again, I can't speak to the specific changes that are necessary in order to comply with Mass DOP's requirements. I'm led to believe that there needs to be a new stormwater report in connection with those changes. I do not know whether that stormwater report would consider the uplands differently than prior. That's something that if Mr. Reardon does not know at present, we'll have to report back to the commission.
Okay. So I'll now, Isabella, the agent's input on this matter. As to what you have heard from Attorney Brodsky and John Newmart's statement.
Yeah, so when Graves, Dylan Lindholm, the town planner, and I were on the site walk with John, John described that they would be making minor modifications to the site and the stormwater report. And therefore, he also needs to come before us for those minor modifications, not just planning board. And I would recommend the commission choose a peer reviewer now so that when those minor modifications come through, we have an expert able to determine whether those are minor or whether they require an amendment to the order of conditions. And so I think in lieu of the fact that we are getting changes on top of the issues the commission has observed and identified by Graves, I still recommend peer review.
Okay, when they come back with an updated stormwater something, does that constitute a permit application that then would be subject to section 10.b of the Wetlands Protection Bylaw? It's okay to say you don't know, and then we would refer to town council for an opinion.
I don't know. My understanding is that they will be coming forward with minor modifications, but it is up to the commission to determine if it is minor or if it requires an amendment to the order conditions or refiling.
Okay,
Chair Hummel, it's Adam
Yep.
Brodsky. I would agree with the agent. It's the commission's role to determine whether a modification is minor or whether it's so substantial that it would require a request for an amendment. And I believe that a request for amendment would be an application for which the commission may require a peer review. Having said that, stormwater is going to be reviewed by the planning board. It makes, again, no practical sense for stormwater to be reviewed both by the planning board's consultant or engineer and then the conservation commissions.
Okay, my response to that, and I'll ask if other committee members feel the same way. In the past, the review by the planning board for stormwater and the review that Concom and the questions we have about stormwater sometimes are different.
They should not be different because it's the same standard. The project needs to comply with the Massachusetts stormwater standards, which are incorporated into the wetlands regulations.
Yes.
Unless you have more stringent stormwater standards in your local bylaw regulations, which I don't believe is the case, your review would also be consistent with the stormwater standards. So
Yes, I'm thinking particularly of the 23 Cape Road project early last year, where the Concom raised stormwater concerns that had not been addressed by the planning board peer reviewer, and we decided at that time not to engage our own peer review, but we had been considering it at that point. So there is some history for that. Any other input on this? All right, so is there a timetable for when a new planning board, a new stormwater package would be delivered to planning board and Concom?
Not at present.
Are we talking 2 weeks, 2 months?
I literally just got asked to look at
Okay.
things yesterday.
Okay. All right, anybody on the committee other than me have suggestions on how to move forward on this matter before I say something?
Well, I'm just concerned that there's an ongoing issue. And so I would want someone to help us evaluate and give the perspective from the Conservation Commission, which might have slightly different interpretations in the planning board as to how we review the stormwater. But having said that, I just have to take a personal, John Lenart, I respect the man, and I'm so saddened that he feels he has to withdraw because he had my respect and he was a straight shooter. I'll leave it at that. My concern though with the statement is I don't think we have to show that the silt came from the top of the hill. I think it's a no-brainer that the increased flow from the top of the hill is going to be more after you cut trees than it was in a wooded situation. And that's going to add water to the downstream wetland. It's going to increase the flooding potential. It's going to increase the erosive power that's going to be taken out of the bank somewhere else. So I don't think we have to show where the silt comes from. I think we have to show that there was increased flows. And I'm thinking that this is an enlargement of the site, which might have to be an expansion of the application. But I don't really care about that. I just want someone that we can go to next week because it's already been 2 months that we've pushed off this. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the specific way that has been stated in my initial ruling is we're not taking jurisdiction about the upland site and whether there were trees cut or not, or what the plans are for the future use of it, because it's outside of our jurisdictional buffer zone. We are taking jurisdiction to regulate the impact of that activity in the uplands as how it applies to the wetland resources, specifically whether an increased stormwater flow is something that we need to be taking into consideration.
And you phrased it very well. Thank you.
Right.
Chair.
Chair
So-
Hummel, it's Adam Brodsky. Could I briefly respond, please?
Yep, please.
We were in complete agreement the last Conservation Commission meeting that all of the erosion controls were appropriate, robust, and that there are no present or continuing issues at the site. So I don't know what the commission member, I think it's Mr. Coffin, is concerned about. There's no, we've done everything that we can in order to prevent any future problems. So I'm not aware of any ongoing condition that should cause concern to the Conservation Commission. And then lastly, I respectfully disagree with the chair's articulation of 310 CMR 10.02D, which clearly states that any activity outside of the areas specified within the regulations, outside of the buffer zone, or outside the wetland area or outside the buffer zone, does not require the filing of a notice of intent unless and until that activity actually alters an area subject to protection. And again, I respectfully suggest there's been no evidence that the activity outside of your jurisdiction in that upland area has actually altered an area subject to protection. You have some conjecture regarding stormwater running off the top of that hill, but there's no evidence of alteration associated with any activity in that upland area. So I think the commission goes a step too far in trying to assert jurisdiction over that area.
Okay. Bob, did you want to say something?
Attorney Brodsky, I believe that there are photographs or at least personal witness to water running down that rock road that was carrying silt with it all the way down to the bottom of the site. So that would be
Thank you,
coming
sir.
from the top and down.
And Mr. Naynard has indicated that all of that water went through the site as designed, and so would have been treated. The silt that got into the wetland came from the lower portion of the site. And again, I have to rely upon Mr. Naynard's technical review of this. I can't draw any inferences from photographs. There's no question that it was a 5-inch grade event, which is incredibly unusual, and there was water all over the site. But the issue to focus on is what is the evidence that the activity in the upland area actually altered the wetland at the bottom of the hill. I respectfully suggest there is no evidence, and it's simply conjecture at this point.
There's just a disagreement at this point, so we can just say that there's a disagreement on that issue. I would go back to bring up another point that I mentioned in my opening statement, that we have received advice from Mass DEP about why we should pursue a more broad peer review. Isabella, could you speak to that? DEP's input on this particular issue.
I haven't spoken to DEP again. This was they recommended peer review back in February when they wrote the enforcement order with me, but we consulted with town council.
Right. Okay. So their attorney Brodsky did bring up an issue about whether or not whether the Mendon bylaws would allow us to require the applicant, the site owner manager, to pay for a peer review. But that is in addition to the question of whether the Conservation Commission as a whole believes that we should be issuing a peer review. In terms of our budget, what is in our budget for paying for peer review? Does this fall under professional services?
You can use the Wetland Protection Act, but town council Town council recommended not using our own funds and that we require the applicant to.
Right.
But there is room, we do have a wetland fund.
Okay.
Yes.
So we've heard an argument that we may not be able to compel the applicant. We would need to go over that with town council to see that. But outside of that issue, the question is, do we believe that there is value in having a extended peer review, even if it turns out that the Concom, after town council reviews, may end up having to pay for it? So any feedback on that question?
And that is like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. One was Mar.
One was for 6,000, one was for 3,000.
Can I ask, what do we think we'll gain by having that peer?
The additional expectation would be for the Concom to have someone who is sensitive to our concerns about stormwater flow in the area and whether a modification would be warranted to protect the resource areas moving forward after the site is complete or during construction on the site.
So are you saying that as a board, we're thinking that there's not adequate protection going on over there?
The question is whether we have a statement that I read out loud about Graves Engineering that the stormwater analysis that was done initially needed to be redone. We've heard that there are now plans to do that. We've heard that at a future meeting, we don't know when, that stormwater will come before us and we will have to decide whether it constitutes a minor change, which we can accept, or whether it's a more major change that would require further review, maybe additional paperwork. The goal is that if we retain a peer reviewer now, they would be able to come up with speed on it and then would be able to evaluate what comes before the planning board and us in the next couple.
But it sounds like there'll be the information they'll be using to do the evaluation. Sounds like it's going to be outdated.
And we would,
So
they would be able to look
I
at
tend
historical.
to agree on principle that why are we doing a review when we know that the guidelines are going to be changed and outdated? Why are we wasting our time then? Why don't we wait, see what the new requirements are, if any, and decide then?
Okay, other people on the commission?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. Where was I gonna go with that? Because we have an existing problem, and I think we messed up, and the planning board, in the initial review. So how we allowed a settling basin to have the intermittent pond go through it and think that you can use that as a construction settling basin without causing problems, that was our bad. Yes, well, let me finish. So there was a lot, it was a wet year last year. And I'm not sure when the erosion started. We saw it in December and there were storms. There could very well be another storm in the next month. And whether I'm assuming there's going to have to be some further analysis, and that might take, if you can get somebody to do it quick, a couple weeks, couple months, and then that'll give you the exact numbers as to how much flow needs to be required and how big the detention. I don't know all the engineering required, but I'm looking for someone who has skills, knowledge, and experience and doesn't need the detailed engineering report to say how many gallons. We got a problem there. We haven't been able to get it under control. Yes, you've done as good a job, but it's still getting overpowered. And if we have another 2.5-inch storm, it's going to get overpowered. So I just want another set of eyes and an experience in specific erosion control. I don't know your experience. I'm sure you're good. But
So if I could just,
please.
so I've been brought on as a new set of eyes. So we didn't do the original design. We didn't do the original erosion control. The very first thing I'm going to do is do exactly what you're looking for someone else to come in and do, which is I'm going to look to see what's been proposed and see if I agree with it. Because from now going forward, it will be my stamp that will be on any drawings. So necessarily the very first thing I'm going to do is do the same evaluation that you just asked. And I may very well come up with the same concerns and say, well, we got to do something different. But I haven't gotten there yet. I'm hoping to do it as soon as possible. I literally just got brought on yesterday to take a look at things and walked the site yesterday with John and Kevin. And, you know, I mean, it's obviously a tough site, but man, they've worked hard to try and,
They've done all that they can. And so,
so
Okay,
so you're an engineer, I take it.
I am, yes.
And that's great. I'm looking for someone who is specifically experienced with a lot of erosion control. So I don't know if erosion control is your specialty,
It's
but I
like- it's
imagine.
like 60% of everything we do as engineers.
okay, so
I'll-
we'll cut that off. Before I get to Mike, does another commissioner want to speak before we go back to Mike?
I'd like
Yep.
an observation more than anything. A question. So it's been brought up that Graves Engineering is already going to be doing a peer review. Question I have is, do you have the time to wait for Graves to do that, then for us to review Graves's report and then have a meeting on it? Because, well, if we're not gonna do a peer review, then we're gonna be relying on Graves' peer review. And then we're gonna have to all take and look at it and then review what they have and have a meeting on it. Am I right?
If we're not satisfied with the peer review from Graves, we would need to explore
How long?
either working more with Graves or having our own at that point, yes.
Right, and so that's my question. Are we having our own because it's an interesting time for the applicant? Or is it so that we have a better understanding from a conservation side than a planning board side?
The second, I believe. Okay,
Yeah, we're not gonna have two complete reviews of the same stormwater. We're gonna have a more thorough review of the stormwater impacts to the resource areas and a review of the erosion controls as they stand to protect the resource areas.
back to Mike. Did you still want to say something?
No.
Okay.
Can I
Yep,
just
please.
respond to something that was said by the commission member?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so my name's Owen Kramer. Good to introduce myself to all of you. I'm the SWIP inspector on site. So the erosion and sediment control specialist on site and have been since before the beginning of the year. Right when we started putting everything together for the SWIP for the site. I know that there's concerns that there's an ongoing issue, and if we get another, say, 2.5 inches of rain, there may be a problem. In my own inspections of the site and my own monitoring of the weather on the site, we've had a historically rainy March, for example, where we saw many times the regular rainfall amount that you might expect in the month from what I've heard from professional meteorologists. In that time, Route 85 Realty Corp and John and Nard, as an extension of their action on site, I would say did an exceptional job making sure that everything reached the state it's in now. And we actually did see multiple storms, which by some accounts reached over 2.5 inches of rain and didn't have any problems on site. So I think the idea that there's an ongoing issue when really everything that, at least in my professional opinion, has been done. I'm not sure that it's necessary, really, at this time, in my own opinion, to extend any kind of peer review on stormwater on that basis. But of course, the commission is free to pursue any path they see fit.
Any other discussion before I start moving towards a motion?
A procedural question. I think the normal procedures, if we were to hire a reviewer, we would get a choice of 3, and then we think we want one, or the developer gets a review, right? Gets to choose which one. Tell me how it works.
No, because we already, what we did originally is a couple of months ago is we sent out a request for proposals and got back 2
Right.
RFQs, quotes back. Those are the 2 that we evaluated a couple of months ago. Then we had input from Attorney Brodsky and the site owner that they did not want to have the stormwater part of it evaluated. So we've already done that groundwork of selecting 2 different firms. They've come up back with 2 different quotes.
Right, Mr. Chair, but I was just, if they were amenable to that, we would have two. We would choose that one.
Yes.
And then they have no option to say, yes, I want that one, or no, I don't. I don't know. So in any event, we
The
would have,
only, they can appeal the qualifications to select board.
okay, but we would choose them. We would hire and then they would pay the bill?
Yes, that's the way. it
Okay,
works.
so now we have a recommendation from our council that maybe we should go that route. We're hearing from the applicant that they don't agree with that. Are we still in the position where we could make a decision to hire that person tonight? And that let the lawyers decide who's going to pay for it, right?
That's what I will do now and lay out the various options, and then I will wait for someone on the commission to make a motion. One of them is we punt this down the road another 2 weeks. The engineer who just came on board will have another chance to look at things. He will be able to give us a better idea of when the update to the planning board will happen, when an update to the stormwater plan would happen that would be submitted to us and the planning board. And we would then be able to decide then if we want to do it. So option one is kick the can down the road 2 weeks. Option two is to proceed forward with what we voted on at the last meeting, except one of the two peer reviews, limiting it to just the remediation plan. Another option is to go ahead and go forward with the initial, supersede that previous vote and instead accept one of the two existing RFQs. And then we have a conversation between council, Attorney Brodsky, and so on and so forth about whether we are able to exercise the right that may or may not be granted to the town to have the applicant pay for it or not. Attorney Brodsky made a good point that at the moment, it doesn't seem like it's timely because we don't have we're not doing an existing permit. Another thing to do is to specifically say we're going to defer this action until we get the updated stormwater plan, even though we don't know how long that will be. And at that time, decide whether we are comfortable with Graves Engineering doing a review or whether we still want to have a second peer review totally focused on wetlands protection issues. I believe that covers all of the options. If anyone else can think of another one, otherwise I will, as chair, wait for someone to make a motion and see if it gets seconded.
I'll make a motion. I think you need a few weeks, don't you?
Least.
Yeah. I mean, we're not playing with a fair deck if you don't have all the information you need to come here and
And
be
there are a
before
lot of
us.
issues at play. So number one, this was precipitated by sort of DOT and their concerns about the entrances. So our first order of business to make sure that we're not sort of being premature with things is to make sure we've got DOT fully on board with whatever solutions that we're proposing. Because without that, then we could be back here again, right? So
It's a good.
I would suggest that a little bit of patience because hopefully maybe I come back and say, yeah, you were right, Peter. They should have done this and they should have done this. And, I'd be saying, well, we got to go do this and that. But, to your point, I'm hoping to get clarity in the next couple of weeks, whether or not we have a deliverable ready to be reviewed. I doubt that, but at a minimum, I'll be able to come back and brief you on what progress we've made.
So what's your motion?
My motion is that we wait 2 weeks and kick it down
Okay, so
kick the can down the road.
So to defer this issue and bring it up on the agenda in 2 weeks. Is there a second?
Could I propose 4 weeks? Because he said he needed time.
Well, no, you have to approve the motion.
Oh, okay.
You second the motion and then you ask to amend her motion. And then we have a discussion
Well,
about whether to amend
the
it.
motion won't carry if no one's second.
Exactly. So, and if,
Okay.
if no one seconds this motion, then I sit around and wait for someone to come up with another motion and hopefully
I just want to give,
And I can't second it.
I just want to give him time to get on board.
You're right.
I agree. We should.
So I need a second before we have.
Make a motion. No, we wait.
No.
I'll go second.
Okay, great. We now have a second. We
Thanks.
now have discussion. And someone said 4 weeks instead of 2? What was that? Input?
Well, yeah, because you indicated that you needed a lot of time.
Yeah, again, and I'm willing to come back at any time and update you on our progress.
Mhm.
But, so it's just at the discretion of the board, whatever you'd like to sort of get an update.
Okay, Peter, you're.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate a new member is brought on for the applicant, but that is not really an issue for us. We need an advocate who can work now to deal with an issue. How he's going to study it and come up, but that's all right. And I would suggest that, I don't know what DOT is asking for downtown drainage, but I know our Graves Engineering has asked a review of drainage from the upper part because it's going to have an impact on the down part. So I still don't want to wait to bring someone on our team until the next team is all ready to prepare and review. That, it makes no sense. Why not engage that person as soon as possible?
So what I would say is that if this motion that is currently on the table fails to pass, you will be making a motion to accept, to go ahead with one of the 2 peer reviews. Is that correct?
I guess,
Okay.
procedurally, yeah.
Okay, if that's what you want, when this motion comes to a vote, you would vote against it and we'd see how other people are voting one way or the other. Welcome to parliamentary.
Yeah.
You know, Concom usually doesn't do this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to keep everyone aware of what the process is supposed to.
Lining up with the
But
motions.
again, I gotta throw the question out. What is our ultimate goal? To point fingers and say, we shoulda, we coulda, we didn't? Or going forward, trying to resolve a problem? I, for one, am not interested in saying they should have done this, we should have done that.
Past is the
We made a
past.
mistake, they made a mistake. You know what? That's behind us. Let's wait till we get all the facts. If it's changing, let's work on those facts.
So are you speaking in favor of the motion? To wait 2 weeks for more information?
However long it takes for
Okay.
this gentleman to get up to speed, for the new requirements being set. I'm certainly not looking to hold up and persecute anybody.
Mhm.
And I can understand how they are feeling that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just respond.
Yep.
I'm looking to fix the problem. I'm not looking to assign blame.
Yep.
I am looking to get the information so you can come up with a legitimate fix. That's.
Okay.
I think the original purpose of the peer review was to have someone review the submittals by Goddard for the impact analysis to the bordering vegetated wetland and the restoration plan, as well as in impending Lake Nipmuc retention, Lake Nipmuc restoration plan. So those are the things that we are primarily having the peer review look at in addition to the current state of the site, erosion controls, and work with Graves on stormwater. So the primary of the, no, the peer review is for in
conjunction.
yes.
Okay, so this raises a second issue. In addition to deferring the question of the stormwater review for 2 weeks, do we want to tonight approve a peer review just of the restoration? Because we are getting close to the summer when that would happen. And the applicant is okay with paying for that part of a peer review, but we will address that after we deal with the motion on the table. The motion that's currently on the floor. So any further discussion on the motion to defer this and bring the subject up again in 2 weeks? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote for or against, waiting for 2 weeks.
Four.
For.
Against.
Okay, then the motion passes. Is there interest in a motion to approve the restoration part of the peer review
Yes.
process? And this would be moving forward with what we agreed to do at our previous meeting. Okay, so someone make a motion.
I make a motion to move forward with figuring out the restoration process, or are we looking for a peer reviewer for that?
No, we would pick one of the 2 RFQs that we already have.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to go forward.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
That's a good compromise.
The
We're making
discussion,
progress.
the discussion would be to pick one of the two. And we have one for 3,000, one for 6,000.
I don't think it should be a matter of, I think we should pick the best one. The
Well-
one that falls with what we're,
When I reviewed them a couple months ago, they both were equally technical. One of them just used a whole lot more words.
okay.
Yeah, I
Fair.
did read them as
Chair,
well. yeah.
Chair Hummel, it's Adam
Yes.
Brodsky, a point of information, and I know that
Yep.
you're in deliberation. I don't recall whether the proposals broke out the task and the cost for just reviewing the restoration. So I'd suggest that you review the proposals again. The total sums were the total sums. And so
Okay,
the review of the restoration plan would be a portion of that.
okay, so then the action for this motion would be to direct the agent to come back and see if they reduce their RFQs based on just a restoration plan part of it.
I have the amended ecosystem solutions peer review that took out the stormwater and is just about restoration for $1,900.
Great. Okay. So that's their reduced amount.
Yes.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we hire environmental because they're the ones who are doing Manchog Pond blowout. So they're very well experienced. I don't know if you're
Okay,
familiar with what's happening on that.
so you're proposing an amendment to Leia's motion.
She made the motion to hire, go ahead and hire someone, and I'm going to
Yes.
amend that to make that
Say
specific
specifically.
to,
With the quote that Isabella just referred to.
yes.
Is there a second to Peter's amendment motion?
Can I second it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, so the motion now reads that we will pick that particular RFQ and that particular and that particular peer reviewer. Is there any discussion on the amended motion? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Bob and I.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, this motion passes as well. At this point, we're already 15 minutes late for our scheduled public hearing. So unless there's any really crisis material on this, I want to move on to that particular item. Okay, thank you for coming and look forward to seeing you in the next couple of meetings. Work out. We'll have emails. Okay. All right, this is this particular. All right, a little bit late, but I will open the public hearing for 49 Milford Street. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Mendon Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 28. The Mendon Conservation Commission is holding a public hearing for applicant Showtime Engineering LLC, submitted by Guerrero and Hanlon Incorporated on today's date, to review a notice of intent application for adult entertainment at 49 Milford Street, Mendon, Mass. 01756. I will now declare the hearing open. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, Dale McKinnon from Gary and Holland. We screwed up. We didn't get the an extension for the notice of intent. So we're here providing a COC for the work that's been done before. We provided a interim as-built for what's been done. And we're seeking to a new notice of intent to complete the project. This is where we had anticipated to be working this month, and we've been out at least a couple of weeks or a month since we found out that this error had been made.
Okay, yes, there was this is not deliberate on the applicant's part. They mistakenly believed that there was a COVID extension to order of conditions. Upon review with DEP, they notified both the Concom and you that, nope, you needed to refile. So my understanding is that there are two separate things happening. You're existing to close out the existing expired order of conditions with an as-built, and then you will be coming up with a new notice of intent to continue the work that you need to finish up. Is that a correct?
We have submitted the notice of intent to
Right.
you.
And did that, where's the butter notification for that second step done properly?
Yes, it was.
Okay, have you received the green cards for them?
Yeah, I need the, I sent an email about getting the.
Yeah,
reports
I
Or
did not
the,
bring those.
the certified abutter.
It's a certified item that we're getting. not the-
Registered and certified.
Yeah.
The certified list. So
Right.
if you can just email that, tomorrow.
Pardon?
If you can email that tomorrow, if you have
I
it.
can do that. Yeah.
Okay, so, I believe we should do this in number one and the number two.
Sure.
So are you prepared to present materials to close out and the existing order of conditions?
Yes, I provided a letter to you. I don't know if you've received it or not, but it's discussing the request for the order, outlining the differences and the work that still needed to be completed. The only difference, let me, give me a minute. Let me put up the original design plans so that we can reference the particular item on the plan. The work that's, the only difference from what was approved was the entrance was going to be a porte cochere where the cars can drive under at the entrance. In this case, they've decided not to allow the cars to come in the entrance, and they're using it only as a covered entrance for pedestrians. And that was I believe in my letter, that was the one item that had changed. It decreased the pavement slightly in that area. Now, let me just go over it. Most of you are not familiar with this project. Where's Beth? Very, very good. Sure, good point. Okay. What we have is an entrance. And as you can see, there was a separate drive-through area in the front of the building. And the only changes is that has not been built, and the covered entrance has been slightly extended to be. Other than that, there's been no changes in what was proposed to be in the original project.
Okay. My understanding is the as-built was received today. Have you had sufficient time? Is our agent, have you had sufficient time to review the as-built and compare it to conditions on the site?
Yeah, I haven't, been on the site. I did request either Monday or Tuesday, but didn't get a response. So I haven't been out there to confirm it, but from driving by, it looks very similar. The only thing I did pick up on, the items you had remained for work to be completed.
Yes.
You have that fire gravel lane on the
Yes,
right
that's true.
side, so
Yep.
that needs to be added.
I just consider that part of landscaping, that's all, because it's just a surface type area.
Okay.
And it's a gravel and not impervious, so it would.
Correct.
Stormwater.
Right. Okay. It's on the right-hand side of the, it's proposed in this area here. It allows them to come through. Trucks, if they need to an emergency, fire trucks in an emergency situation.
A quick question, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just because it's a problematic site, and I'm trying to refresh my memories. If you blow up the screen, just this, because, where is the water? Okay, this is the wetland here,
Yes,
but there is drainage pipe proposed, or there was the first thing, it's like the water from, it's got to come across Route 16 somewhere, and we struggled and couldn't find it, and now I'm hearing there might be one off-site. I don't know, but I'm seeing now a drain. So what is that? Is that an existing
That drain pipe is on the original design and it is coming, we believe
That
it's,
is existing drain is my question. Is it there?
that is an existing drain pipe.
And that existing drain goes to an existing
That-
manhole?
That is now existing. It was not existing in the original, but this is as built and connected out.
So before you did the work, you're telling me there was a drain here.
Yes,
Was there a manhole?
no, there wasn't.
So that drain just went to daylight?
Yes,
Okay, because what I'm suggesting, I don't know where the wetland ends and begins and where's the stream. So there's water coming out of here and then it went through here and then it fed here. So what is this symbol?
this is another proposed, that's the existing drainage. This is the drainage pipe where it outlets to the wetland.
So that pipe didn't end there.
No, it went
It
through
did.
this pipe.
So this is a new pipe that you're going to connect to that
Sure.
existing.
Let me.
Okay.
This pipe and this pipe are existing. What? We had the Board of Health issue and we couldn't have an open area. So we had to build a manhole, connect the pipe and allow the water to go through to the wetlands.
Okay, so when we went out on our original walk,
Yes, back in 2020.
yeah, maybe even
Okay.
older, okay.
Yeah.
You're saying that drain was there
Yes,
and then it took a bend. And then it came to where? And when it
Right,
came to
that-
daylight there,
yes.
and what size pipe was that?
I believe it's an 8-inch.
It was an 8 inch, and you're proposing to keep an 8 inch pipe? or
Peter,
what?
Peter, hold on. This part of the meeting, we're only talking about the as-built and whether to accept and close out the expired order of conditions. We will then have the second part where we talk about their plans for the future. So the question is there an issue with the as-built right now before we can put this particular piece of paperwork to rest before we have them file a new piece of paperwork?
Right, and so I was trying to get comfortable that nothing had changed or what was being done.
And I do want to try and explain that to you. Can I just?
Yeah,
take one
go
minute?
ahead.
Sure. This pipe is existing on the original existing condition site from the original plan, okay? So is this pipe here coming in, okay? What's different, and I neglected to add this as new from there, is when we went to the Board of Health, they required us to put in a manhole to connect those two pipes. So that is a difference from the approved plan.
Thank you. So just a procedural question, Mr. Chair. I like this cleaning it up. I just don't want, let's have this discussion. I don't want to give a certificate tonight and then there's not an order of conditions until another 4 weeks, 6 up.
Well,
But let's have the discussion. That's,
we're not going to issue a certificate of compliance on the old order of conditions. We're just going to close that order of conditions out so that that particular registry deed thing gets cleaned up, and then we would put a new one on with the new order of
No,
conditions.
you do have to close the old permit with a certificate of compliance.
Oh, okay. So
But I
it'd
would
be a par-
recommend
would be a partial then.
it would be a complete, but there would be condition that the new permit is opening.
I'm glad you're here to keep me honest.
I would recommend, since we don't yet have a DEP file number and we'll have to continue 2 weeks, I would recommend a site walk to confirm the as-built, or commissioners confirm the as-built looks as it is, and close it then as well. But that's up to you all if you're comfortable closing it on an as-built or if you want to see it first.
I'd like to go out and see a site walk.
Me too. Same.
Would we still want to have the site walk on Monday or Tuesday, or would it be our usual Thursdays?
Whenever the engineer and commissioners are.
I'd like to go as soon as possible so that we can make sure we can get it situated by the following.
I was hoping we would have already been out there.
Okay, so I will let you work offline with Isabella, pick out which day next week work best.
We're available anytime, so.
Yeah, we can do Monday at 10.
Monday,
Yeah.
10 a.m. Okay.
I have to go to a job site. Shoot.
Is there parking there? I don't want to,
it's pretty visible from the street.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be parking out back later anyway.
Okay. All right. So,
This coming Monday at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m.
Yes, and so the expectation is that this first part, we would then be continuing this for 2 weeks until May. So could I have a motion to that effect?
I will motion for,
Well, you need the applicant to request.
Oh, sorry.
okay.
Oh, wait, okay, we have someone from the audience. I keep forgetting the audience.
Mr. Chairman, would I be able to join that sidewalk?
That's at the discretion of the owner.
I think there's a problem between the applicant and the commission members. So
Well, the one who's recusing himself. So I will let you address that privately with them as well and.
very good.
Please
I
work.
I would recommend you make a decision as the chair.
Do I get to?
If you
say-
limit it to commissioners or not.
Okay, then if it's something the chair will do, I'll say that the sidewalk would be restricted to members of the commission and this sidewalk would not be open to the public. And if we may ask at a future sidewalk and clarify that differently. What would I do without you? Make mistakes, make more mistakes. All right. So I need a motion on agenda item number 7.
Almost.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, great. And I wanted to find out, are you ready to now this evening present on the second part of where you'd be requesting the new OOC
Yes,
and
a new order of condition, a new
NOI? Yes, and my understanding is you would be giving Isabella the green cards and we're still waiting for a DEP number for this?
Yes, that's what.
Okay,
I-
so we would not be taking action to
You
issue
didn't,
anything.
sorry, you didn't receive a number today, did you?
No, yeah, she wasn't prepared to make her comments.
Okay,
And
so,
I think as Dale said, we're getting a certified receipt of mailing, not green cards.
okay, what's the difference?
So one is a list that they sent to, they get a stamp from the post office that they sent them all out.
Okay,
So it's not the certified mail receipt, but they're both valid and
if
They sent it out. We don't know if they received or they're signed for it, but they were.
okay, if it's considered valid by the state and our bylaws, then that's the way things work. Yes.
Has a new filing fee been submitted?
Yes, it has.
Okay, I'm just used to Bill McHenry getting a thick stack of green cards when we started public hearings. I guess there's a new way of doing things now. Okay. All right, so if you want to make your initial presentation.
Sure. Well, can we, I'll do it from here. It's a little bigger than my plan over here. You go to page 3, please.
that was way faster than I thought.
Page 2, this was the existing condition. That's all been demolished. If we can go in the as-built, you can see that the building has already been built. I already spoke to you about this access way for dropping off. It's been removed. So this little bit of pavement will no longer be there. It'll be just, you've got this and this area will be landscaped instead. So the project has not changed at all from the original approval. The proposed idea is for parking all the way up in here. The drainage is already constructed. It meets the stormwater policy. It was reviewed by Graves Engineering back in 2020. There has been no change. It has been constructed. The remaining items to be installed on this site are basically the final landscaping. We also have to install the septic system. And that and the shrubs and things of that nature, germination of grass seed, and then the final pavement of the parking lot and the entrance straw. That is the remaining work there. I believe there's still some work to be done inside the building, but that's separate from what we're talking about here. And as Isabella mentioned, this crushed stone area for access through to the rear parking lot and to the rear of the building. Quicker access than having to go around is there if it's so needed. When we were here originally, the commission asked us to move this entrance over 5 feet, and that's what has been constructed out on the site. That way this slope over here wouldn't be too steep, and that's what was asked for. But that final grading on the site has not yet been done, so that's what we want to get going forward with. So during the site walk Monday at 10 a.m., you would, in addition to showing the as-built, you would be able to lay out the additional areas of work. Sure. Yeah.
Ask a question.
Yep, question time.
Do we have plans for the landscaping?
Yes, if we go to page, I think it's 7, maybe back one. Yeah, that page. See all the trees and
I
everything?
do. Does that key there show what you're planting?
Yes.
Okay. That's in our files, Isabella?
Yep, I have copies.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to take a look at that. Are we voting on this tonight?
I have 8.5 by, 11 by 17s of the original. If you'd like to have a copy of those.
I would like a copy. That would be great.
So I think I only need 5 copies. If so, I apologize.
I've got some.
To address your question about the timeline. This evening, we're hearing their initial presentation. We are going to have a site walk and review their proposed changes. We are awaiting a DEP number and DEP comments. So until both of those happen, we're not going to be issuing a order of conditions for the work that's yet to be completed. So Leah will look at your landscaping and ground cover plan. She's our botanist specialist. And may come back, especially if you have like invasive species or something. Those are first on the list. All invasive species.
I might just say that running along the east side, that's a wetland there, right?
Yes.
That's clear. So that's why you move, we asked you to move. it.
Correct.
Not just the bank, yeah.
Okay, I'll wait a little bit while people.
No, I'm gonna, if we're not doing this tonight, I'd like to take these home and
Oh,
review
yes,
them.
yes, I'm just waiting to see if Mike has any questions after he finishes looking through the plans.
These gentlemen are fine with it. They voted.
Well, conditions can't change. So when I saw that septic system
You know,
with,
it's not
with a
raining-
foot of water in it, I'm saying,
Any-
well,
I think the biggest concern is to go out and verify the as-built and review and identify the remainder of the work to be done
Sure.
and then get it done. You'll be getting a new number, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe if any further discussion, any other questions from the audience? I don't see any hands on there. So would you please, are you amenable to continuing this for 2 weeks and then coming back at that time?
Well, unless I can get your approval tonight, I guess I.
Well,
you can get verbal, but it's gonna be subject to.
if I issue an OOC without DEP comments, I will get severely beat around the head and shoulders.
She would never do that to you.
No, this isn't her. This is our DEP circuit writer.
Isabella will keep you in track, you know? Yes, please, do as you said.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I move that we continue this to our next meeting, which is May 9th.
Yeah, and this time we're continuing reviewing the new notice of intent.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, so thank you for coming and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
For We're still running a little behind, but at 8:30, we scheduled to meet with Medical and Land Trust on agenda item number 9, Maple Farm conservation restrictions. There is a draft that is actively being talked about, and we wanted to address some of the issues were raised. So is there someone from Medicom?
I see Mike Pinko on the.
Yeah,
Mike,
Mike and Lisa are both on.
okay, great.
Hello, everybody.
Are you able to screen share?
I am. Lisa, do you what would you like me to share? No, Lisa, do you have anything to say first? Lisa?
Lisa's still muted.
Where's my line?
Oh.
Should get some coffee.
I've given you all those things, I think. And I have my.
Oh, yes.
Like things
So I think the only thing
overrated.
would be if you can set that.
Sure. I apologize for that thing.
That's okay.
I think you told me. So.
I got your, I got the as-built set.
Lisa, you're muted, if you can hear me. Maybe she stepped away from her computer for a minute. Well, I can share the current draft of the CR with you. I think tonight there's a couple things I think we wanted to go over with you. I guess the first thing is just the status of the review by the Division of Conservation. We still don't have basically a red line review from them. They've provided a few comments here and there, mostly due to the survey through emails, but we don't have a markup from them. And we don't know when we're going to get that. We are getting a little nervous about the schedule. We've got basically 2 months to finish this and record the CR, unless we get some sort of an extension. Isabella provided us some comments a week or two ago regarding a few things, including some new language for indigenous uses of the property, and Lisa and I thought those were fine. Probably the one new thing that we'd like to consider adding to the CR. I'm going to try to share my screen right now. Can you see like 2 documents here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let me minimize one of them. How's the size of the text? Can you read it?
Bigger.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, this paragraph currently is not in the conservation restriction, but we think it would be a good idea to add it. Basically, what it does is if there's ever an ownership change or an owner of the property, of the CR protected property, that chooses not to maintain the hayfields, this would give the grantees, Metacom and Town of Mendon, the option of maintaining those hayfields. Basically, this would be some insurance to protect the agricultural value of those fields, and also the aesthetics, because they're visible from North Avenue. So I just was, wondering, if you had any feedback on this. It's similar to a paragraph that was included in a conservation restriction for another property, for another farm in Upton. I'm sure you know that if an owner, not the current owners, but perhaps a future owner, stopped mowing those fields, within a fairly short number of years, you'd have a developing shrubland with many invasive species. You lose the aesthetic view. Plus, it would be difficult to restore the agricultural value. So, and we think, I'm not sure Lisa was going to run this by the owners, the Vandersluises. We're hoping this won't be an issue with them, but this is probably the major change that so far is occurring in the CR from the draft that you have. So, I mean, do you have any comments on this? Want to think about it, or?
Peter?
I appreciate the concern and I'm supportive of the concern. I just wonder if it's a hayfield, you want it cut every year. But if it's concerned with growth, do you let it, you don't want shrubbery growing. So is it every 3 years? Or who makes that call? If it's not written in every year, it's a sense, it's a little strict.
Yeah,
Every
I think
2, 3
I think it would
years,
be
you keep it.
the grantees would decide. If this ever became an issue, the grantees would probably jointly decide. What the best way to manage the fields were. They potentially, the last sentence here says mowing of the fields, and then mowing of the fields for hay. I tried to kind of give an option that perhaps the grantees would find a farmer to mow the fields, continue to mow the fields for hay. If not, they could just be mowed, essentially for habitat. And then you could have a, whatever kind of a mowing regime you wanted every year, every couple years, some kind of rotation, mow late for habitat purposes late in the season. But I think there's enough flexibility here that the grantees would be able to do whatever they really wanted to at that time.
So if I can put this into English in a specific use case, if a future owner did not maintain the field and let it just grow, the town and or Metacomet would, at our expense, notify the owner that we're going to go in and mow the place down. And at our discretion, we could either go in and mow for hay, or we could wait a couple years and go in with the Bushmaster and whack everything down. Would we be required to haul away any of the silage that fell in the field? Is that part of our expense?
No, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
All right.
I would guess probably not. But again, this is written to give flexibility.
Okay.
And again, hopefully it would never really have to be invoked. The other
Okay.
part of this, though, is maintaining the stone walls along North Avenue. We've been working on the baseline report and noticed that there's about 400 feet or so of stone wall that's really very heavily overgrown with vines, shrubs, invasives. And this would give the grantees, if they chose, the ability to just, maintain those stone walls, to remove the vegetation, to improve the aesthetics.
Okay. My second question is, does this allow Metacomet, the town, to collect money from a farmer who's willing to go in there and get the hay for their livestock?
I think it's silent on that right now.
Is it something we'd be allowed to do or prohibited from, or just we kick the can down and let the future grantee decide?
We could add some, a stipulation in there for any revenues generated would go to somebody. I don't know.
Well,
Or I think the opportunity to lease to a farmer versus having to do it ourselves. Is that your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Having someone else
Right.
come in and do it on a lease.
Yes, it would be our expense, but we would help defray the cost of that expense by getting money from a farmer who used it on from when I was observing this happen in Framingham at Callahan State Park, a farmer would go in, depending on how much sunlight and heat and rain, he was going in 3 times in one summer and collecting hay.
Mhm.
I think we allow, we lease Edmund Hill.
We do for like $1 a year, so
Yeah, so it's
not to make money.
It's, yeah, it's
As long
not
as
to make
there's-
money, but the farmer benefits and does the work for us.
As long as there's some way of saying that money can get involved in this and it's not prohibited. That's what I would be looking for.
If we're looking to keep invasives down, it should be mowed once a year. It really should, because they just
Right.
blink an eye.
Yeah.
That's sure true. I mean, ideally, this clause won't have to be used in the future. And if it is used, hopefully there will be still, someone in town or nearby, in Mendon or nearby, who's willing to mow the fields and collect the hay. But 50 years from now, will someone like that exist or not? We don't know. So trying to just leave it flexible, with whatever options. And Metacomet and the town could decide to let it go, I suppose. If they did not.
Any other comment, any other comments on this draft edition? All right, is there anyone, so
Sorry, through the chair, if I may just, Lisa's here. Okay, great. I think Lisa wants to talk about the primary versus secondary grantee situation.
I want to get this off the table first. So we don't need to have a vote, but is there anyone who is speaking, who thinks this is a bad thing to add to the CR?
It's a good thing.
Okay, so there's a consensus from the commission that we would agree with having this added to the CR. Okay, take it away, Lisa.
You're muted,
I
Lisa.
apologize for the technical difficulties.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. I apologize for the technical difficulties. So, in a previous version, we had discussed adding Audubon as a successor organization to hold the CR should the land trust ever have to dissolve. And there is already a successor mechanism in our bylaws. But the reason Audubon asked to be added was because we are working with them on, they are going to provide us a bridge loan to complete this transaction. And that was sort of collateral in some respects. But when their legal team looked at it again, they realized that the collateral had to be negotiated between Metacomet and Audubon, and not necessarily Audubon and the conservation restriction. So they are no longer a party to the restriction. And right now, as it stands, the primary holder of the restriction is Metacomet Land Trust, and the secondary holder is the Mendon Conservation Commission. So I hope that clarifies some things. And if anyone has any questions about that, I'll try my best to answer.
Yes, one of the concerns that some members of the committee have expressed is, why is the Metacomet as primary with discretion to take legal action as opposed to the town, given that it is the town that put up money as well as Metacomet? What's the reasoning or justification behind that?
Thank you. The justification behind that is totally the decision of the landowners. And then the state requires that there be one primary and one secondary, that there can't be two primaries.
Okay, so
In that decision.
So the Vanderslusses have requested that Metacomet be primary?
That's correct.
Okay, we also, Isabella and I also discussed this with town council, and town council, her belief is that Metacomet should be primary as well. Is that an accurate statement? Yes, okay. So Mike, do you want to have any follow-up? Okay. My understanding is that, as we heard earlier, we're still waiting for a final approved by the state CR. And so we're going to have to wait for that as well. What would the process of requesting an extension be? Would the Concom have to vote on anything to request an extension, or would that be handled by Metacomet?
I think the state,
that would be handled.
it's because the
go
state is
ahead.
very behind in looking at the agreements, so they would have to issue some sort of extension for the grant that Metacomet acquired,
Okay, so.
or the grant that we acquired, I'm
So,
sure.
so let us know if we need to get involved in pushing the state to either cough up the CR review or give us an extension and make sure that town council and the select board are okay with having that move out, as well as the vendor's lists.
And I believe the Conservation Commission also has to sign the CR.
Yes.
And so we would really appreciate it if we could maybe have a placeholder on the early June agenda so that we could make sure signatures happen.
That we can do.
Yes, and if necessary, we can, if we're coming up against a deadline and we already have and we're getting close, we can work out an arrangement whereby we would approve whatever we saw before us and then arrange to sign it really, really quickly. Isabella would either we'd all go into the office or she'd hunt us down, or we would see whether we can do this particular signing electronically.
I heard she had you all digitally chipped so she can find you anywhere. But thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you for coming in and addressing these issues with us, and we'll look forward to voting on the CR when we get a final version.
You're very welcome.
Okay. All right, let's see, we've done that. Done 49 Milford. All right. I think we're now ready for, since we have a professional here, we will pick that one up next. We will now move on to 134 North Avenue, discuss issuance of an enforcement order for unauthorized activities that have been conducted and are currently occurring within areas subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, 131, Section 40, and Mendon Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 28. On advice of Mass DEP and Town Council, I will be recusing myself on this matter. I am almost certainly going to be in a butter, and since the issue is filling of a wetlands that I own part of that swamp between the school and Misco Road, there's a appearance that I might suffer a financial hardship due to the actions of the applicant. So I will be going in the audience, and Susan will be taking over any future mission activities in a particular proper parcel.
Okay, so.
I can't remember your name. I'm so sorry.
My name's Sean Reardon.
Sean Reardon.
Yep. Sorry, I don't think I told you that the first time.
Madam Chair, this is Adam Brodsky. I'm also here for this matter.
All right, so I entertain a motion to issue the executive order as written by the agent. Isabella, could you summarize that for us?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background. There were quite a bit of activity on January 22nd. I can pull the timeline up to share.
How was this reported, Isabella?
This was observed by abutters that there was activity occurring outside of the lawn area or in the back of the house in the wetland area. And sorry, just a moment. I'm gonna pull up. The timelines in the enforcement order, the attachment to the enforcement order. But so in January, there was activity occurring on some outbuildings on the property. And after correspondence with John Nienart, the site manager at the time, and the Conservation Commission chair, those building permits were put on hold in our system. And those have been on hold for the last 3 months as the John Nienart had agreed to submitting an ANRAD plan. On last week, April 17th, there was observed to be work being done on one of the outbuildings and a truck parked on a potential wetland resource area to do the work. And after that, I did further investigation into the site. I called DEP and went through the site timeline with them. And there's further imagery than what John supplied to us in January. And so review of aerial photography. You can see we start. Of course, it's not gonna load. So we have back in 2005, you can see the wetland resource here. You can see all the bordering vegetated wetland resource and material. You can see the clear limit of work for this property here and where the pool and the house is and quite a far distance from the wetland there. 2019, this is a year after ownership. For Route 85, you still see the same house. This was before the house was built, but you see the same limit of work in that first year of ownership. And that was submitted, 2019 photo was submitted by John in January. And so was this 2021 photo. This one now shows extensive clearing and the new house. The lawn has extended much farther than that original limit of work that we saw here. You can see the overlay of Mass DEP's wetland layer classified as deep marsh, and deep marsh would have the associated resource areas of wetland, land underwater, bordering vegetated wetland, and the Mendon wetland bylaw of 25 feet, 50-foot no build, and the 100-foot buffer.
Excuse me, back to that.
Yeah,
Just a
what was
quick
that?
question. Because you had the dark blue, which I guess is the deep marsh,
Mhm.
and then you had the other kind of, and it almost went down towards the road. Is that supposed to be wetland or is that buffer, or that was someone's assumption of where the historical wetland was?
DEP has, yeah, that's all historical wetlands on that layer.
Okay.
Um,
So it's not an aerial photograph. Someone's converted that into an overlay.
Yeah, that's the DEP earth layer for the wetlands.
What
Is
year
that
was that, Isabella?
That was 2021 was this last photo. And that's what John submitted to us. So that's where we were waiting for this ANRAD plan. That's why I tabled it. I was expecting that from John. After the work occurred last week, I pulled the most recent satellite imagery. This is from June 1st, 2023. You can now see that on top of the extended landscaping, there is a supposed go-kart path, tennis court, pool building, additional building, and a horse barn here. And this building permit for the horse barn, the pool, and the third building is all on hold by the commission for the building permit. And so the only things that were reviewed by a commission admin at the times when they came in, the house plan was given oversight, and the pool was also in the building department, signed off by the commission chair. And that happened in the timeline. We have the building permit came in 2020, and the pool permit came in May 1st, 2023. And so the enforcement order is for, I'm going to read this off of the attachment. Extensive site alteration and other unauthorized activities have been conducted and are currently occurring within areas subject to protection under the Wetland Protection Act and Mendon Wetland Bylaw at 134 North Avenue. These activities required review and approval by the Conservation Commission, and permits were not requested for or issued for the work. On January 22nd, 2024, Mr. Nenart was made aware of these 3 outbuildings required permitting pursuant to the Wetland Protection Act and the bylaw. On April 17th, work was observed at an outbuilding and a truck was parked on potential resource areas. Further review of Mass GIS layers and a review of recent aerial photography shows significant clearing of vegetation and alteration of areas within jurisdiction has occurred over the recent years. These activities required review and approval by the Commission pursuant to the Wetland Protection Act and the bylaw. The limit of development landscaped area has changed significantly since the property was acquired by the current owner. Mass Mapper outlines a jurisdictional wetland resource area depicted as deep marsh, which appears to have been altered and currently looks like lawn. Direct impacts to the wetland resource area include but are not limited to bordering vegetated wetland, bank, land underwater, and alterations to the buffer zones. The Mendon bylaw additionally protects 25-foot no disturb and 50-foot no build. Imagery dated June 1st, 2023 depicts the extent of landscaped yard, 3 outbuildings, paved tennis court, go-kart path, stone wall and fence, and other site alterations, all within the jurisdictional area. The associated fill, alteration, clearing of this land are all violations of the Wetland Protection Act. And the order proposed under the enforcement will be to provide written confirmation of the intent to comply with Mendon Conservation Commission within 5 business days of the receipt of this order. Evaluation of the property for all wetland resource areas to include review of all altered wetlands. The evaluation shall be conducted by a qualified wetland professional. Restoration plan shall include a surveyed topographic site plan showing all Wetland Protection Act and bylaw resource areas and areas to be restored. The restoration plan shall be developed by a qualified wetland professional. Restoration plan shall include a narrative that details the site description, description of unpermitted work, areas to be restored, grading plans, revegetation plans, erosion control plans, and the long-term monitoring plan. All restoration work shall be completed by October 1st, 2024. And this was drafted with the DEP circuit writer, Rebecca Goodrow and Kim Ross, and town council has also reviewed it. So the ask is the commission to review and issue enforcement.
Okay. So, yeah, so entertaining the motion to issue this executive order
Do we want to hear from him at all?
as written by the agent.
No, you make a motion first.
Yeah, that's instructed.
I'm sorry.
Haven't done this yet, so I wrote it down.
I'm sorry. Will you say that one more time? I just stepped on your toes horribly.
I have bigger shit. No. Yeah, so again, this motion, to issue the executive order as written by the agent. Of course, as written with, guidance from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, reviewed by town council. So,
Make a motion that we accept the issuance of the enforcement order.
Second.
I shouldn't have used
Second.
acronyms.
Now we have discussion.
Any discussion?
The only, can I ask a question? So the only thing that was permitted on the property was the house and the pool.
The house and the pool both were approved in the building permit, but there was not an extensive review. And the reviews that they looked at the person at the time or the chair at the time would have looked at would be, this is the pool plan. So this is the house. It doesn't depict the wetlands or anything. It doesn't show the extent that the land has changed. So not reviewing the aerial photograph is an oversight of that person. But it doesn't,
Did it come before or?
it did not come before the commission.
And then all the other buildings, the go-kart trail, the tennis court, the horse barn, none of that had permits.
None of that had permits. Nothing had permits, but they are existing. This proposed plan given to the building department does not show the paved either. So this is what's on hold with the building department. It shows the three buildings. It doesn't show that this was put on hold in January. The satellite imagery revealed the tennis court and the other paved areas. This also doesn't show, there's from imagery again, there is a fence and a stone wall potentially in the wetland as well.
And they would have had to have brought in fill and stuff, I'm guessing, to do all of this.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to go now?
I'm just here to say that a similar story. Adam and I both just got brought on board yesterday to look at this. So it's really just, we're here to listen and I don't know if Adam wants to say anything else.
No, thank you, Sean. The same. We're learning about this by listening this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a brief comment because we discussed it briefly. Evidently, a new catch basin was installed. I'm all for that, but I just am curious as to where the catch basin drains to. It was put in the road because there was a shallow area which one would have assumed drainage went from the south, crossed over the street on its way to the wetland. The water would sit on the street, and what John let us to believe was they installed a drain. I guess my question is where that drain goes to, so we'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. Our intent is, once we get our footing and understand the history and the things that have happened out there, I mean, everything that I think Isabella listed is what we'd expect to provide. But again, we're just sort of learning all this stuff, and there's a lot of history we gotta backtrack through, and we'll capture as much as we can. Great.
Anything else? Okay, Carl?
I would like to clarify the process of the building permit approvals that have been done in the past, and in particular for this site. Up until 2 weeks after Isabella started, the process of reviewing building permits was, there was a workflow in the town website that there is a ability for the Concom to review a building permit. Historically, that would have either been done by our clerk, Bill McHenry, or after he left, it was done by the conservation chair. So the permitting for the work that happened in 2019, 2020 was done by the former chair. The permitting that was done in 2023 for the pool was done by myself. And the reason is because at the time, I did not look at the aerial photograph from 2005, which showed a very large amount of wetlands curving in. Instead, I was looking at the aerial photograph from that particular point, at which point fill may or may not have been done. And according to that particular photo, I did the measure and measured out, and it was the actual pool itself, proposed plan was 100 feet away from the current Mass GIS photograph. So that would, I did not take a site walk at that time. I have never, as part of a building permit review, I typically do not go on to sites. The current process that we implemented now that Isabella isn't here is active is on every building permit review, she pulls up the Mass GIS locus, attaches that to the building permit, and then specifically states, based on this, it is not jurisdictional, or she will say, based on the GIS photo, there is a question, so therefore the permit is pulled until such time as the applicant allows a sidewalk.
Okay.
Or comes in the period since November and the past couple of months, we had applicants come in for building permits. That's not that. Yes.
Have we not done, there's not been a site walk here yet? Okay.
My understanding is that site walks were done by the previous chair.
Any other discussion?
So my understanding is that the motion and seconded that is an enforcement order going to be executed, and that's where we're at right now.
That's the motion, yep.
So, do we have a second? You need a vote.
I seconded it. It's.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Thank you.
I moved the
I'm a
motion.
tiebreaker. So,
All vote.
Roll call vote. Yeah, there you go.
ready?
I,
Okay.
Off and I.
You have to ask, all in favor,
Okay.
and you have any,
Never done this before.
any opposed.
Okay,
And
all right, so,
Listen, we have a lawyer watching. We're getting into some serious stuff here. So let's make sure we do it according, it's all formality.
I didn't
So
have
let's
those
make sure we do it formality.
Roll call vote. Ask for the roll call vote.
okay, all those in favor of, authorizing this EO as written by the agent as discussed, by our conservation commission and our guests and the, the lawyer and, whatnot.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Right. Leah, aye.
Coffin, aye.
Mendeleer abstain.
And so you're supposed to sum up saying, the ayes have it.
And you get to do the
Okay.
gavel.
I do. All right. The ayes have it. So this passes and, we'll issue the EO.
I'll get,
If I could ask a quick question. So Adam and I will be handling the response to all this. So do we coordinate directly with Isabella or do we want to do that in the hearing process or how do you?
She's coordinated with
you
it.
can coordinate with me.
Awesome.
I can get the signatures and give you this now. Just scan it in. If you want to wait or give me a minute.
You don't have to.
Okay, I'll get it
It's already
tomorrow.
receive it.
Yeah.
Ms.
guys,
Genevieve,
tomorrow.
if you could be so kind as to email a copy to me, Adam Brodsky, I can circulate it.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you
It
guys.
was nice meeting you, Sean.
Sure, we'll be spending some time.
Great relief. I will unrecuse myself and
You didn't tell me the rest of that. Oh, boy.
all right.
I'm studying.
We have someone in the audience.
It would have been the same way. That would have been all.
Oh, I forgot my cheat sheet, so. I go make a.
Yeah, I am not finding this, so this goes right by me.
Okay.
So we're ready to go for.
I'm allowed to do this, right?
You're not signing either.
I'm
That's
not.
all.
Did Bob sign it?
Now
Oh, yeah.
to agenda item 10, 58C. I believe that's what you're here for? Yeah, okay.
And then there was one.
Go again. 58
Let's go to the other
Street
side.
update, review photos from April 16 and April 19, DEP number 218-0833 for pipe installation. So you want to come on up? Isabella?
Oh, you can still.
Isabella, what do we have?
Happy it got done.
Oh, it already got done?
Fair enough.
I helped them all
Nice
day
job. Good
in
team.
the rain. I gotta give them credit. He's been out there in the rain all day long. Yep.
So here was the check dam. This was before installation. Going through water coming out. And then that was the day after, I think. So slightly turbid water. This was the surrounding pipe with the smaller clay one inside. Again, turbid water, but and you also put the vertical pipe still in there, but I don't know. Do you want to speak to the photos?
What I did was I put a check dam in to minimize the amount of silt that would flow because it was high water from clogging the pipe. So we minimized the amount of flow by putting a check dam in, dug the pipe, put the new pipe in, and when I put the new pipe in, I put a T at the end so that it would minimize the leaves that would come into the pipe to create clogging in the future. So I designed it as a septic system would be designed, and therefore now the water flows freely through the pipe and is clear and running clean.
So here-
Has it made a difference in?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Almost dry.
It was holding a lot of water. But.
Well, I'm glad. I like to see what that site, that looks like improvements have been made.
It really, it did made a big difference.
That was yesterday?
No,
No,
that
last week.
was before the pipe was replaced. That right there was how high the water was being backed up. That pipe that you see in there, the white pipe, the water should be at the bottom of it, not the top.
That's duckweed there, that green.
I know, I was just gonna say.
That's good, son.
Yeah, duckweed's great. You want it in your pond. Good aeration, filtration.
Well, it goes good with the ducks too.
No, it's dockweed. Not
So we
duckweed.
reviewed the photos. Do we need to take any action on this?
I don't think so. We're going to be giving a certificate of compliance when it's all done, right? This is just like a status update, if you will. Right?
This was to facilitate what was on the plan originally.
Yep.
And then reinstituted.
Good job.
We're just gonna sign off on the pipe.
Well, we will do that as part of the OOC as certificate of compliance when all of the rest of the work is done and he's going to come asking to.
Because there's still a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not closing the permit yet.
That's fine.
All right.
Very pleased. I got done.
Good.
And we didn't disturb any.
Of that historic structure. Yes, I like that.
It
Thank you.
slipped right in.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take it easy, Bob.
Backwards to agenda item number
Make a
8.
motion that we accept the pitches and follow pipe complete.
No, you shut up. We didn't hear that.
Out of order. Agenda item 8, request for certificate of compliance for 93 Northbridge Road, DEP number 218-0779 by Bruce Wheeler for construction of a single family home and associated utilities.
Yeah, so there's a building permit on hold for 93 Northbridge. They want to put an addition on the house. So this was the COC request I got from them. I did go out today and so I have a couple questions for the commission. They still have the wattle in, so I don't want to issue this. I could get signatures, but make sure they get the wattle out. The green netting. So the I
So
guess
that
I'll
maybe should
do-
be a standard item what we have that all, because you don't take out hay bales, right? You leave those.
Should all be biodegradable.
The
Yep.
waddles.
I
should
agree
be
with
able to
you
left,
on-
You're saying?
Mike,
Yeah,
I
should
think
all
they
be
should
done.
all be biodegradable.
Should all be
I can't tell what ways. Okay, there we go.
forward.
Oh, these are not, this is not really
It makes it
sufficient.
easier in the end too, if everything's biodegradable. You don't have to go
Sit there,
back
you
and,
don't have to
right.
Disturb it twice, yeah.
So this one, it's the first lot, on the Sylvan Springs. I guess I thought I had it stand in.
Is it online or no?
Apparently not. But so
So
they
there's
have,
only one lot between two roads, Dual Crossing and Locust Hill.
so it's the first, it's still on Northbridge, Northbridge
Got a lot
Road.
of frontage on Northbridge.
So this is 2021. It might not show. Well,
Please go ahead.
yeah, you wanted to stand for the rest of it?
So did that house have an order of conditions on it?
Yeah, so this is 93. This is the one they want to close. The order of conditions did not have any special conditions. However, there is the large retention basin and the drainage swale on this. And so there's still wattle in here, the green netting, and there is some silt fence staking here. So I do need to get the developer to take that out.
Right, because now that's a separate order of conditions for the drainage and the roads as opposed to the house, right? So I'm not sure which one, the wattles belong to the drainage project. So is that a different
Is
order
that-
of conditions?
That's what I'm getting to is I'm very confused. Position here, and so it does fall in the 50 to 100 foot buffer. And so I think it's an RDA rather than a notice of intent because they are outside the 50 foot. That's what I told the applicant that they would need to submit. But so as Peter said, I think the drainage is a separate order of conditions. However, the status, the wattle is like, this area is done. So I think the wattle can come out. But I do think it will come out when we do this, all the drainage certificates as well. You can see it's really not there anymore. Pretty degraded. They just need to pull the netting out.
Yeah.
And
So
I would assume that's the owner, current owner, he owns it, he should,
I think,
he can either ask the developer to do it or do it himself, right?
So the brief question was put in on the development order
Yeah.
conditions.
We,
Is that order conditions closed?
it's a good
no,
question.
that's, which one?
For the roadway.
No. So I also have, can I do this? Sylvan Springs discuss open order conditions is number 11. Can we talk about both, I guess, at the same time? Cause it problem. Well, so
Sort of, but go ahead and explain how number 11 fits in with what you want to talk about with number.
I guess, I'll just keep talking about this site. So this was one of the ones that kept on DeShang's reports that they needed to get the trash enclosure on top of the retention basin. So that did happen. But again, the drainage is subject to a different order of conditions. So specifically on this one, I would want to ask either Shea Engineering or DeShang to rip out the netting for this site so that this property owner is kind of all set and done. But I don't know, the special order of conditions for the property didn't have anything specific. However, the deed describes the drainage easement. So I don't know if I should include the drainage easement in the certificate of compliance or just leave it. So not on the, it goes with the land for the property.
Order that covers that drainage was part of the subdivision file.
Right, and at that time, he owned the land and there's an easement across, so that gives him the developer continues to have the right to do the work and is responsible for that work on that private owner's land.
Right.
So they are responsible for taking it off. And can we ask them to take it off before they're totally finished? Yeah, we can. They might say, no, I don't want to, but they'd be stupid to do, right?
Here's my input. You've observed that the waddle is no longer serving its function. So my request to Shea and DeShang is to do one of two things. Either replace it, hopefully with biodegradable, or remove entirely. But either way, the situation as is cannot stand. It's not functional. So either it can be removed or it has to be replaced.
Sounds good to me.
Can we say biodegradable?
Who's responsible to take it out? I don't want to make the homeowner responsible because it's not his
No,
responsibility.
the developer is definitely willing to take it out. I don't think it needs to be replaced because all the stormwater at this area is done. So, but I guess, do you want to issue the certificate and I reach out to the developer that they have this, I mean, this waddle, if it's under to the drainage order of conditions, it'll have to be taken out at that point too.
Before we sign off on subdivisions.
Right.
Yeah, my expectation is that when they want to do the subdivision drainage OOC, we'll do a site walk every square inch looking for nylon and say, has to come out before we sign off.
Right. So then, at least for this order of conditions, do I write subject to a drainage easement as written in the deed, or do I just leave it? Nothing. I don't think it's bad to remind on the COC that drainage will be maintained. However, I don't think they're gonna forget that it has to be maintained by the town.
It couldn't hurt, but it doesn't
Or-
have to be, right? Because
Okay.
that's why it's on the deed.
That's why it's an easement.
Okay.
Like you say.
Okay, so so I could either include the language that's in the deed here as well, or it's arbitrary.
I would say that we would issue the COC and note that in the easement area, that particular order of conditions has not been completed. So we say the homeowner gets the COC. However, the easement doesn't.
Right. it does not release the responsibility. The previous order for the subdivision.
Yes. Is that, can you make sense out of that?
Yeah, I think so. So then you need just a motion to approve the COC.
Their motion.
I'll make that motion to approve the certificate of compliance for Northbridge Street.
93 North.
DEP 2180779.
That's
Is there a second?
second.
Their discussion. Favor,
Aye.
opposed. Okay, passes unanimously. Now going to zip forward and do the next most important thing on here. Agenda item number 13. Budget fiscal year 2025. Discuss authorizing the use of the wetland RRAP account for the conservation agent salary. I'll start by asking Isabella to explain what the RRAP account is and what the Wetlands Protection Act and the DEP regulations say we can use it for.
The wetland wrap account is where the state portion of the filing fees goes. It's where the temporary override and salary came from. DEP regulations are that it gets used for administrative function, enforcement for wetlands, and anything wetland related, wetland training. Yeah, and so finance director reached out that they are absorbing 20 hours and benefits for my position into the general fund. There would be 10 hours out of this wetland account and 10 hours from the land use committee to be the energy coordinator. So she's requesting me, I guess, to get you guys to issue a motion to allow for up to 15,000 for next year, fiscal year 25. And she has offered that if depending on the land use grants, this can potentially be refunded.
Just a question, how much is in that account?
Currently around 42,000, but you did authorize through the end of the year to get paid out of that.
42, so how much are they going to be taking out of that for your salary?
They're requesting 15,000.
15 out of 42.
But again, we will get money in throughout the year, but yeah.
About how much goes in for a usual NOI kind of thing?
We haven't tapped that for 20 years. It's probably grown for
Single family homes are
a year.
no, so big commercial projects range anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000, and then each single family house is 250.
That 250, I believe, gets split between the state and us.
No, it's 500 and gets split to 250.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm all for increasing the staffing, so I support that motion, but we have to revisit. I don't want this to be
I think
set the precedent,
yeah,
right?
sorry,
It's a one-time thing.
that's the last point is Jody's promised, and so as the current interim town administrator and the previous town administrator, that this would be the incremental approach to get the conservation agent to full-time. It's also the transition year to potentially having 40-hour conservation agent and having the energy coordinator be a temporary thing to see the need for the positions. But again, we are jumping from 18 hours or 10 hours as was budgeted this year to 30. So
another opportunity I expect to explore with the future full-time permanent town administrator is we have someone in town hall staff retiring later this summer. At that time, we can look at the workload, and in addition to having a conservation agent, we would have a clerk shared between all of the different town departments, ZBA, planning, health. And that clerk would be responsible for many of the administrative tasks for which Isabella is getting overpaid. Or rather, we'd have her salary paying for her to do
Work.
the
Clerical stuff.
well, she gets paid a whole lot to do the thinking stuff and arguing and doing sidewalk and advising us. Whereas the clerk would be much more like what Bill McHenry used to do with just making sure all of the paperwork got filed on time, everything in regulated with the state. So that's a distinction between what we're getting out of Isabella and what Bill McHenry used to do for us.
Then we'll get more bang for the buck if we have a clerk,
Exactly.
and then Isabella can focus on the bigger
Right.
tasks at hand.
That's the point. And then that's an approach we will take. And so we might end up having a conservation agent working 20, 25 hours and a conservation clerk working 10 hours, and we would get all of the work that needs to get done. And that would free up Isabella to work on other town projects like culverts or water quality and mapping and other things that she would be able to develop her career for.
So my motion still stands.
Yep. So any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, since this needs to
Seconded.
get recorded, I want to have a roll call vote. I'd like to get a roll call vote since this is going to be passed, this information will be passed along to other town staff and used as part of our budgeting process. So roll call.
Bob,
Yes. Oh, Susan,
Leah, I.
Cough and I.
Mendeley, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Going back to agenda item 2, correspondence. Any new correspondence in the past few days?
I have an email from the Department of Fish and Wildlife Service who holds the CR, I think, the other part of Quissa and maybe Inman, or that's the same CR. They want to do a site visit. They've invited me and any commissioners who want to come. So either Monday, May 13th, Monday, or Wednesday, the 15th, Thursday, the 16th, and I'm curious if anyone wants to come on that walk.
Where is this?
when is it?
Either the 13th, 15th, or 16th,
Inman
a
Pond?
Monday, Wednesday.
This is our
Inman
conservation,
Hill.
this is our conservation land way down south that normally we don't have to pay any attention.
That's where I live. Inman Pond is near me.
No, Inman Hill.
Oh, Inman Hill.
Oh, cool. Good friend of mine lives there.
This is Department of Fish and Wildlife's land, not ours.
And is that where we ran into the problem with the trail work on the puncheons and, because I went out for a walk, it was like 2 or 3 years. Is this like an annual thing?
They go every year.
Yeah. Check it out. It's always fun. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I really,
meet the agent, the wildlife people.
yeah, that's what I'm excited to go and meet them.
Schedule it at your convenience and let us know when it is and
Yeah.
we'll see who shows up.
That's kind of close to planting. That takes up a good 2 weeks of my time.
Getting there. That's for.
You should see my tomatoes.
Oh, I'm in office.
Didn't put them out yet.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna go out for hardening next week, though. I've got a garage.
There was correspondence from the Northbridge Conservation Department. They're doing a fee analysis of all the surrounding communities, and that makes my job easier because if we're gonna change our fees, they've already done the analysis.
But that is good.
So I was excited for that email. So we'll see what they come up with. And then there was correspondence. There's a property owner on Kinsley Lane next to, I think it's Meadowbrook North or Muddy Brook Uplands. The names, conservation lands are the same, but there's quite a few trees down. I walked it. I kind of think the trees look like they're really old and they're coming down. I've emailed Ann Mazar, the tree warden, and Metacomet, because I'm not sure who does land management or forestry management.
Cutting trees on trails? I don't know. Nobody.
Yeah, nobody. So I have to
So
figure.
have the trees fallen over or they're just dead and dying? Okay.
So there's two trees down in the trail. And then there's a lot of trees coming down in that area.
The trees are all taking a hit. They're all dying.
Right. So I think it's either ash or
But some of it is regenerative too. Sometimes forest dies, but they regenerate. You just have to make sure which way.
right.
they're all.
I tend to think it's climate change more than, no.
legal weapons.
Teenager and a chainsaw. What could possibly go wrong?
Chainsaws.
You know what they need there? some beavers.
There you go.
You'll take care of those trees.
Okay, I guess this is merging into conservation updates, I guess, but correspondence, whatever.
Okay,
Uh,
so go on to agenda item 14, conservation agent updates.
I met with two engineers from GNH, Kendra Santa Maria, and I'm blanking on this second guy's name. There's a property 39 Millville on Lake Nipmuc that wants to build a retaining wall. They want to get it permitted the right way. So we went over what they would need for that. And so to prepare for that, I reached out to MSMCP discussion board. I got a call from Joey Wigglesworth, who's been the MACC, one of the board members, now is the Webster agent and was the chairman for like 10 years. So I had a long phone call with him about retaining walls.
It's on the lake,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
And then I also had a long phone call with chapter 91 about retaining walls. And so did my best to guide the engineers about what I would expect them to submit to you all. And the engineers, ultimately they come up with the plan, but giving them, essentially the commission does not want to see a wall in the water. You'd want it further up than the high annual mean water line and outside of the floodplain. And you wouldn't want the land to be level with the wall because then you get straight sheet flow into the lake versus having it absorb. And so a couple other things that I just said we would be looking for in a future review. And then if the wall is outside of the flood zone and the mean annual high water line, it doesn't trigger chapter 91 license. So I said that's the other benefit of pulling it further back. But the other performance standards are that you cannot alter more than either 10% of the bank or 50 linear feet of the resource area. And if you do, then you additionally trigger a wildlife evaluation and bordering vegetated wetland replication,
How is that written? Is it 10% or 50?
whichever is
Most,
less.
whichever is less. So if you only have 50 feet, you can only put a 5-foot wall? That doesn't sound right. I don't know. Because all this information is going to inform us on the old Taft Ave wall that is already
We're
built.
still
So,
waiting for it, yes.
yeah.
Peter, I think if I understood that correctly, you can put that 50-foot wall in, but it triggers a habitat studies.
Okay, okay, you can do it, but
Yeah, so if it's, I wrote it down.
Sounds like more trouble than it's worth to put in a wall. I'm sorry.
walls and docks, everybody's gonna want them.
Is there a buffer? Does the buffer zone apply here on a lake?
Does the
So
buffer?
that's what I got confused about in the bylaw, and
That's the
I
only
might
thing I could
ask
think of.
town council. Mendon's bylaw classifies a pond within a 200-foot buffer, which would then trigger the riverfront analysis, which has a whole cost analysis and a 1.5 times fee. So I don't agree that there's a 200-foot buffer. I think that's me. I don't know what you all think. It's in the bylaw, but I don't know how that
Well,
would be
what's the
interpreted.
usual buffer for a house,
Well, for a buffer for a stream is 100 feet.
right?
A buffer for a river is 200.
200, yep.
Yep.
So the question is, what is a buffer for a pond? I would assumed it's 100, but you're saying our bylaw says 200 for a pond? I don't know where we came up with that, but
Because a pond's not really a moving body of water.
Right.
no.
So
Really
there's
cool.
multiple resource areas though for the pond. There's the land under the water, there's the bank, there's
Yeah.
the bordering vegetated wetland if there is one, and then there would be the buffer
They
zone.
don't muck it out.
But so it says if project alters up to 10% of length of bank on property or 50 linear feet that is significant to wildlife habitat, it is not deemed to impair its capacity to wildlife habitat. That's permittable. If bank alteration is unavoidable and larger than 50 linear feet or 10%, bank replication restoration can be designed in the bordering vegetation wetland or contiguous to the water body.
So the way I read that, if he has 100 feet frontage and he puts up a 50-foot wall, he's got to do it. If he's puts up a 10-foot wall, he's still gotta live, because that's 10% of his frontage. So he's gotta do that extra work.
He can do 50 if he goes over. That then triggers a wildlife habitat and possibly replication.
I guess
I'll
my
have to-
question, what if he does 30, but that's greater than 10% of what doesn't he also have to do it if it's greater than 10% of his, I don't know.
Right,
Leave
whatever.
that to
The engineer comes up with it in the
There you go.
application.
Well,
Um,
thank you for researching.
it's in the standard. So, yeah, I met with them this morning. The last one is for 3 Morrison Drive. That's the property, the school bus property. I met with him with Jack Hunter, town planner, and Dylan, assistant town planner. And they're preparing new engineering plans for a building there and expanding the parking lot. So that's gonna have to go through planning board, and the stormwater review will go through planning board. Whether or not there's wetlands on that far right-hand side will come up, I guess. My review shows there aren't. The Applewood subdivision also kind of shows there aren't. But so I updated the neighbor that that submittal will be coming and he'll get a butter notification at that time.
Morrison Drive though, wasn't there a little, I don't know. What thought, we even talked about that.
Yes, right there a while ago.
That's the 5, so that's the other side, not the
Oh,
school
okay.
bus. I think that's all my updates.
Okay, cool. Discuss Mass DEP Wetland Protection Act updates. Did anybody review them in the last 2 weeks, look at their spreadsheet and have any comments? Because we cannot kick this off for another 2 weeks because the deadline is the end of this month.
I don't have any comments.
Okay. Check that one off. Discuss boilerplate OOC.
Yeah, I didn't, I compiled a few to review and go over and compare to, but I wasn't able to draft based on our bylaw or anything. So I'm hoping to do that this upcoming week and maybe send it out. Members can review that and give me feedback throughout the week, or come into the office and go over anything, and then hopefully have something prepared for the next meeting.
Okay, agenda item 12, review building permits. 134 North Avenue, we covered exhaustively.
Yeah.
That
North
poor guy.
93 North Bridge, that's still on hold. Any information coming in?
So I figured out building permits, we weren't getting all of them. We were getting only ones that either had flood zone or were excavating. So now I see all of them and there are a lot more coming in. So I'm not gonna put everything I review, only the ones that need to be put on hold. There were a couple in-kind deck replacements. One had buffer zone, but the house is already in the buffer zone. And it was over 50 feet away. So in the bylaw, that's exempt. So they don't need to come in.
Because it's on your existing structure, it's not a separate structure. Yep, same thing applies. Okay. Okay, so they flipped the switch and we are no longer relying on the applicant to be accurate as to whether they're impacting. See all of them, okay. Review and approve minutes for April 11th, 2024. I looked them over, they look fine.
Yeah, they look good.
Issues.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Let's see. I think that covers everything.
I will, sorry, not to keep you all here. Can we go back to number 11?
Yes.
Silton Springs OOC.
Yeah, so now that we're going through the COC and Bruce, the developer, is aware of it, they were trying to get a handle on what was still open and what's not. So I've gone through all we had, which was a bit of a mess, you guys. But now I have every Sylvan Springs in its own folder together.
Did that take a long time? It must have been so tedious. I'm so sorry.
They were all over the place. And so the outstanding problem is there are two sites. We have, you said you found 26 Rawson Farm Drive? No, you didn't. You found Oxford Road.
Yeah.
There are two order of conditions or two sites that were reviewed and approved by the commission that were not issued an order of conditions.
Is that in the last year or?
That was, one was 2021 and one was 23. So they're still both technically valid if it had been issued. So I don't know if I can give them one with the stamp date of the day the hearing closed.
So we made a vote. We just never
They didn't
generated.
get the paperwork. Yeah.
What's been done in terms of attaching the deed to the deed?
There is no order of conditions to attach to the deed.
Okay, so that's a failing on our part.
Can we try to rectify that failing by issuing it now? Why not?
Well, the first thing to do is to find out if we actually,
No, there is no order of conditions that exists for 16 Locust Hill Drive or 26 Rawson Farm Drive.
okay, but we had a vote, and there are minutes that reflect that.
There's no minutes.
Is there minutes for the one in 2021?
I haven't reviewed it, but I know it was on the agenda at least.
And the projects are gone forward and are completed or they're in construction?
They're in construction. These five are in, well, there's a few in construction. So that's the first problem is these two don't have order of conditions.
So
These
I
ones,
guess my question is, why didn't the applicant ask for it, right?
yeah. They,
What he needed was they.
So
could put
my
up a sign
suggestion
that-
is pull the two notice of intent, right?
Mhm. What do you mean by pull?
Take them out and read them,
Okay, yes,
go over to the site
yeah,
and see what's going on
yeah.
and either go, you know what, it's fine, or you know what, it's not fine.
Mhm.
And then we'll make a decision if we're gonna, right.
Rectify,
Well, so-
rectify, yeah.
if we don't issue an order of conditions, we can't exactly give them a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, it's just like it didn't exist.
So then it's just a DEP number that,
That will come
Disappear.
up, that'll be their problem when they go to sell.
no, it's not recorded with the house though.
Right, so there's no.
Right.
There's nothing hanging on it.
So again,
If there's no,
pull the NOIs, see what they said they were gonna do,
And did they do?
go look at it, verify that they're doing it or not.
And as long as there's not a problem,
As long as, right, as long as it's not a problem,
you don't have to do anything, but if.
they
there's a
sound
problem-
like they could probably be complete, or pretty close to it, I
Well,
would.
I
Yeah,
did in my-
there's-
like some of the.
there's quite a few, most of them I would say are close. Oh my God, I don't know why this is zooming in and out like this. They're pretty close. There's quite a few of them that are finished, but they don't have lawn cover. And so those I think could get partials, that they need the lawn cover still. But then, oh my God, I'm what was it? So late. I'm sorry. There's quite a few that have expired, and that's the other problem. Is there were two requests for extensions that were not acted upon, and so there's nothing in the Wetland Protection Act that says you can't issue that now because the was requested. The extension was requested. So I don't know if I can just issue those.
Did they request them?
One came in, extension request for the entire Sylvan Springs development. That's all the drainage and the road. That came in November 7th, 2022.
That's when Maya was taking over and she probably just dropped it.
I have no problems issuing this.
If the extension came in, okay. And then expired ones, I've requested Shea Engineering and the developer to give a status update for each site. I think if it's expired and they still haven't broken ground, they might need to reapply.
Yeah. I think that would be.
If they're expired and everything's done besides the lawn, I think they could get a partial.
I think somebody's clean.
And then depending on how far out they are for the ones that aren't done, they may also have to reapply. I don't.
Clara, whatever you want to call it, you know.
Yeah, it's the same situation as the adult entertainment thing.
Right.
It really should, if they had a valid OOC, it expired, they really shouldn't be doing any more digging. Right? Okay. Drop this.
Okay.
So you'll come back with an update in 2 weeks or 4 weeks with how you're cleaning up the swamp. Okay.
Great job.
Isabella, yeah, your job is really, really tough. It must be so hard to see. You sit at your desk in the morning and you have 80 things to do and you have to figure out what to start with, you know?
Well, she's also had to learn what the rules are.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask a quick question, Bellingham Road, is it with a pond, is that, are you on that? Are they, that bank? Is that on your?
Oh, 13 Bellingham?
13 Bellingham? I don't-
We already, I thought we already settled that.
We did, and I'm just wondering if it's on her to-do list to every once in a while look at it, or I don't know.
I've driven by it, nothing's going on.
Yeah, I haven't heard any.
I'm
updates
just
from
more
them.
worried about Vanderrock Winery.
I'll get there. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
get to it.
Because they're going way far back and I think they bought the house next to that parking lot and they are very, very close to the wetland back there.
Yeah,
For a second.
On
Second.
Mike's motion, second.
Second.
Oh,
Don't disappear yet.
oh my gosh, that entertainment place,
No, I'm
they
just
want to
gonna go-
plant Bradford pears.
That's illegal now. They just made them,
Oh,
that Bradford parrots. and now
oh my gosh, they want to
can't
plant
buy it
Bradford
because it's an
pears.
invasive. species.
What's wrong with these people? You know,
Well, you know, they did ask if they could move forward with the landscape.
Good night, everyone.
Mike.
that is some